Good evening, Jess. Let's do the news. We have some reindeers, all that good stuff. This is the Contributor Appreciation Show. Me going solo today, unless Miss Thomas is going to join me at some point, but me going solo. Welcome to the Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Contributor Appreciation Show. I hope you guys have had a good day today. This is me doing the mantle solo today. But nevertheless, we're still going to have an amazing show. There's a lot of stuff in the news that I've been wanting to get to that I didn't get a chance to get to over the weekend. So this show would be a great platform to get those items done. I tend to like to do this show with Miss Thomas. I always think it gives a different energy to be able to bounce back and forth off of the person who is here. Nevertheless, doing solo is perfectly fine also. Alright, so let's start on good news. Good news for me anyway, because I tend to be a supporter of Bernie Sanders. Now, what I mean by good news... Oh, and by the way, like, share, subscribe, the Contributor Appreciation Show. It's when I give back in the sense of a show from various questions that could be asked to me in less of an informal and more of an informal format, not to mention the users and subscribers and questions and the contributors and patrons and questions. Sometimes they send it through email, sometimes they send it through the Patron platform. However they send the questions, even if they ask them here, I try to have a show where I answer, or at the very least talk and discuss those items. So several items are on the marquee because there's a lot that's been going on around the world and also within the context of U.S. politics. I think the biggest thing that we've probably sent reverberations is Corbyn losing badly. Now, if you've watched this channel, you know I've been warning about this. Now, my warning has been this election is about Brexit. The referendum is the election, and the public is going to be choosing based on, they're not going to be, my point was back then that it's an albatross for Jeremy Corbyn to run on a platform that he's not going to have not one referendum, but two. One, meaning he's going to scrap the first referendum and have a second referendum. That's problematic. You're ignoring the will of the public. But two, a Scottish national referendum. You've essentially promised the SNP that at some point you're going to have an election. Now, in a country that has not even resolved the first divisive election, you can understand that may not go across all that well. And you add to that the secondary position that his notion for a referendum is for him to work out a deal bring that deal back, whereby people on his front bench will vote against this deal and lobby against this deal, and he, as the prime minister on a biggest issue of a generation that is going to affect the UK, he punts. He doesn't take a position. Now, whether Corbyn was cowed by his party, meaning he was so weak as a leader that he couldn't necessarily stand in regards to what he wanted, or even for the most part back up the referendum on this argument that the public chose and we're going to represent the public like he did in 2017, or they were so comically inept and incompetent, that they didn't necessarily know that this election was going to be about Brexit. I strongly suggest it's the former. He probably knew this election was going to be about Brexit, but for whatever reason, he was cowed, or he felt that he was cowed, into a position where he could not honor the referendum. You must understand, the referendum that Labour was putting through was a de facto revocation of Article 50. Why do I think that? I think that because ultimately you've had a bunch of Remainers who, for the most part, either wanted to revoke Article 50 outright or wanted to have a new referendum whereby they scrapped the first referendum. Now understand, in the Labour government, the people who were going to negotiate the deal was going to be Remainers. Those Remainers negotiating a third deal with the European Union is now going to bring that mutilated baby back to the public and say, do you want this baby? It's screeching and screaming with 6 fingers, 10 toes. The public might have very well revoked Article 50, meaning that they would have revoked it with this patina of democracy. And they would have argued everything was done on the level. I mean, we're just pushing for our political objectives. Yes, we're completely ignoring the first referendum, but we're just pushing for our political objectives. Whatever you want to think of this particular situation, the public clearly was not on board for that. And they gave Bojo his numbers in order to affect Brexit. Jeremy Corbyn trying to change the argument to the NHS, fair enough, but this election wasn't about the NHS. If you remember, Bojo got in office with one theme: I am the guy that's going to get Brexit done, and I'm going to get it done by the 31st. The parties looked at this and say, 31st is an attack point for Bojo, and all of them joined in on attacking Boris Johnson to stop him from getting it done on the 31st. Now, I've made the argument, and I made this argument early on, that Bojo let the cat out of the bag that he was looking for a general election. The catch is the Prime Minister can't ask for a general election by himself. With a crippled parliament, losing all of his votes, he then asks what he wants in the first place: a general election. The two things feed into each other. All of the energy that they put into stopping Boris Johnson from getting out by October the 31st gets slown into a lightning rod from the standpoint of, A, fine, we're stuck here for another X number of months, 3 months. You got the extension. Now you have no excuse for an election. And B, not only do you not have an excuse for an election, I have been doing everything that I could from a Herculean effort standpoint in trying to get out of this European Union, and you have been stopping me for the last several months. And the public sees that. Meaning, I'm going to be the guy that get Brexit done is the theme of his prime ministership. It is the reason why Theresa May was put into that office, and when she failed, it was the reason why he picked up the mantle. His argument from day one hasn't been on his policy stuff. It has been, I'm the guy that's going to get Brexit done. And the media has focused on him with Herculean effort, trying to get that done with a parliament that has done everything in their power, including taking him to court. The man lied to the Queen in order to stop him. The moment that you're going into an election and the theme is about Brexit, and one party, Bojo, has done everything in his power to get it done, whether you like it or not, and Labour and the other parties have done everything in their power to frustrate it. And Labour has this position on Brexit where they have, for all intents and purposes, ignored the referendum. Now, there are two things that are true here. Corbyn is being attacked from within and from without. There are people who are Remainers that hate Corbyn's guts. They are Blairites. And I've argued that they would rather see Corbyn or a Sanders fail than a Corbyn or Sanders succeed. The same thing is true in the Labour Party in this case. You have a lot of people in the party who are Remainers, that's true, but who also want to see Corbyn fail, and forcing him into this position where he has to go as this wishy-washy, I'm not a Remainer, I'm not a Brexiteer position, crippled him in the run for the election. Now, whether they knew that intentionally or whether they did that just because they were Remainers, I don't know. It's possible that they drank their own Kool-Aid and believed that the public was sick of Brexit. Well, that clearly is not true. The public just wants to get it done. And Corbyn, taking that position, pushed and hobbled by his party, that weakened him. If you don't believe me, listen to Boris Johnson. Listen to what he says here in the speech, because what he says here is true. And despite all of the media personalities, they're going to scream, it was Corbyn, it was Corbyn, it was Corbyn. He went too far to the left. He went too far to the left. And you're going to have people here in the United States, moderates, right-wing Democrats, say, see what happened to Corbyn? That's going to happen to Sanders. Missing the point that we don't have a queen and there is no overarching issue of Brexit. My point is the issue here was Brexit, not policy. They may have disliked Corbyn for various reasons. My issue with Corbyn is that he was weak. And in being weak, he was vilified and viciously attacked with a vitriol that I have never seen before in regards to the way that the press had went about the man, calling the man an anti-Semite, all this stuff. How he responded to it, to be fair, was weak. But also how he responded to the people in his own party that hobbled and crippled him in this election. In 2017, he was honoring the referendum of Brexit. In 2020, or the 2019 election, he was not honoring the referendum. And not just not honoring the referendum, he couldn't even take a position on Brexit. That's weak. And if you're a part of the British public and somebody who voted to leave, even if you're somebody who voted to stay, you may take the principal position and say, look, if the public decided to leave, you got to leave and you can't take this wishy-washy stance on this. Well, he took the wishy-washy stance. He was hobbled by his party, that's true. By the same token, he is leader of the opposition, and key point in that is lead. He was weak. And this is coming from somebody who actually likes Corbyn.
Buckingham Palace, and I am forming a new government. And on Monday, MPs will arrive at Westminster to form a new parliament. And I'm proud to say that members of our new One Nation government, a people's government, will set out from constituencies that have never returned a Conservative MP for 100 years. And yes, they will have an overwhelming mandate from this election to get Brexit done, and we will honour that mandate by January the 31st. And so in this moment of national resolution, I want to speak directly to those who made it possible. And to
notice what he said to constituencies that have never voted Conservative or never voted Tory. And he's right. Some of these were mining constituencies that Margaret Thatcher absolutely crushed, ended up voting Conservative. Why? They might not have liked Corbyn, but also these were people who voted Brexit. My point is, Corbyn was hobbled by his own party, whether intentional or not. And in being hobbled by his own party, he had to go out and try to make a pitch for something other than Brexit, despite the fact that he had to know that this election was going to be about Brexit. It's an issue of weakness. But it's also an issue that the left conned themselves into believing that the NHS was going to be an overriding issue in this election, which I got to be honest, I have no idea why they thought that. The polls might have showed it a little bit tightening, but for the most part, the Labour Conservative Party was always in the lead. Even when Boris Johnson was losing all of those votes, he still remained in the lead. It was clear that the public saw him trying to get Brexit done and gave him approval of that. He wanted an election because he knew he could break the back of Labour. And Labour taking this wishy-washy position on Brexit, and Jeremy Corbyn being just assaulted, savaged, outside by the media, but also inside of Parliament, sometimes by members of his own party, but definitely by Boris himself. It's too much. It was too much. Lefties need to learn something from this. And the thing that you need to learn from this is compromising is not always a positive attribute, especially if your compromises are the thing that absolutely ends up undermining your attempt at gaining power. Even if those are people who say they're part of your own party, it doesn't necessarily mean that they support and back your interests. And from Corbyn's standpoint, I made the argument that Corbyn needed to wipe the table. That he should have said, all right, now that Brexit is off the table, or no deal Brexit is off the table, I'm going to give you our idea of Brexit. And the reason I made that argument is because it seemed like it was too much of an albatross to run in a wishy-washy policy. And I think ultimately that might have been a better choice. I mean, if you're going to lose because people, Remainers, were going to take you out, or if you're going to lose in an election, I think the latter might have been better. Losing an election allows you and what you represent to be utterly and entirely demonized as being failed. And that's what's taken place, especially when they're hitting the left. This is Corbyn's response after the loss. And I feel for the guy, in part I don't. I mean, part of me feels for the guy because I think he's a decent human being. But I said before, Ned Stark's got his head chopped off. I mean, in situations like this, he would have been better off deselecting those members of the party that were still Blairites and that weren't in his best interests, as opposed to allowing those people to fester around him. He were better off backing people who were actually in support of him. Galloway, Williamson, and being aggressive and pushing back on these anti-Semitic claims as opposed to accepting the narrative of events that was being presented before him. His policies weren't horrific. If anything, his policies, if you're talking about some other nations, well, those are just kind of typical policies of, let's say, like Scandinavian nation of sorts. So it wasn't that these things were kind of outright radical. They might have been to the left in terms of British politics. But I make the point that the issue wasn't policy. If this was a race, let's say Brexit was settled and they were just Bojo versus Corbyn, well, that's a different race. That's not Corbyn having to distance himself from the actual issue of the election and talk about something else. The catch here is concerns about the NHS are real. U.S. companies are salivating at getting their hands on the NHS and increasing the price of drugs and services and so forth. That's real. By the same token, that's not the point of the election. Let's hear Corbyn.
That is obviously very sad at the result we've achieved, and very sad at those colleagues that lost their seats in the election, and very sad for many people in this country who will now have a government that is continuing policies of austerity, and many of the poorest communities, I think, will suffer very badly from the economic strategy that I suspect the Prime Minister will take forward. But also, I have pride in our manifesto that we put forward, and all the policies we put forward, which actually had huge public support on issues of universal credit, the green industrial revolution, and investment for the future. But this election was taken over, ultimately, by Brexit, and we as a party represent people who both voted Remain and Leave, and my whole strategy was to reach out beyond the Brexit divide to try and bring people together, because ultimately the country has to come together.
Now, the question comes up, well, how was he able to reach beyond the divide in 2017? If you remember, in 2017, Labour actually did quite well and pushed back Theresa May. Now, in one case, Theresa May was a bad campaigner, so fair enough. But in another case, the big difference, Labour didn't abandon the referendum. They had their idea of Brexit. It was baby soft with a bit of powder on it, but at the very least, it was Brexit. It was their position on Brexit. In this case, they abdicated that position and had to run after abdicating the position where the leader of the opposition, if become prime minister, would not even take a position on his own Brexit bill. That's an untenable position. Let's keep listening.
So what went wrong? Well, those in Leave areas, in some numbers, voted for Brexit or Conservative candidates, which meant that we lost a number of seats and we didn't make the gains that I'd hoped we could have done, particularly in the Midlands and Yorkshire in the north.
You talked about last night a period of reflection before you stand down. You wouldn't lead the party into another general election. When are you planning on standing down?
Well, the National Executive will have to meet, of course.
God, that's brutal. God, that hurts. That hurts. That hurts. Look, I call this, but just because I call this doesn't necessarily mean I'm happy about this. But we need to be very clear, especially from the standpoint of the left. There are certain lessons to take from this. I've said maybe a month or two ago that they're going to call Sanders anti-Semitic. They're going to call him a self-hating Jew, all of this stuff. And because this worked on Corbyn, they immediately tried to recycle this over to the United States to see if it could draw blood. I got to be honest, I don't think this draws blood in the United States. It's a different situation regarding Sanders, not to mention his family died in the Holocaust. So it's different. It doesn't mean they won't try. These things should not be taken lightly, nor should you accept the narratives that they put forth. Those things need to be pushed back on, viciously so. Because the moment that you accept the narrative, at that point you're living in their world in regards to the criticism, the conversation that you are having. How often have you beat your wife? What do you mean beat my wife? I mean, we may have some people in our party who beat our wives, but I don't think that's a bit... And at that point now, it's, why do you tolerate people beating your wives in their party? You can't accept it if it's not true. The secondary point, especially from the standpoint of the left in the United States, don't accept this notion that what took place there is synonymous with here. It's not. At least it's not a one-to-one. It's fair to say that, yeah, what's his name is a lefty, Jeremy Corbyn. And Jeremy Corbyn failed in regards to another populist right-wing candidate. But that's not necessarily the same thing that applies to here. Like I said, we don't have a queen, nor are we trying to separate from any particular process other than a basic general election. And we are in the context of a primary, and in the context of that primary, we're trying to get somebody who's a lefty to exceed the primary and to try to go against Trump. We don't have an overriding issue of Brexit. Our guy can make the argument that the other guy failed, and it is widely believed that in 2016, if Sanders would have ran that race, Sanders would have won. I'm willing to put my guy up against their guy. And fact of the matter is, I've often said that the political parties are synonymous with one another from the standpoint of the United States and the UK. So during the Thatcher years, you had Reagan in office, Reagan, Thatcher. You had Clinton and Blair. You had Bush and Blair, which was a breaking of the trend. But both of these guys are neo-libs, and both of these guys look at the world in some degree of the same way. So I don't know if you can entirely say you broke the trend. But you end up now with Trump, or you had Obama and Cameron, and now you're going to end up with Trump and Bojo. Is there that much of a difference, though, between Trump and Bojo and then getting a Sanders and Bojo? I mean, both of these guys are populist candidates. Both of these guys are, for the most part, considered to be populist. Let's say it that way. I guess my point is, there are times where this goes out of kilter, meaning a Blair versus a Bush. And I just mean out of kilter from the standpoint of the party system. I don't see these things as being synonymous with one another. I see these things as having dramatically different circumstances in which these guys are running in the race. Corbyn, at no point, wanted to run in this race against Bojo. And you can look at it, when this came up, he was dragged kicking and screaming to the woodshed in this race. They're not synonymous. Listen to this. This is one of the Blairites who don't like Corbyn, who don't like anything of the Corbynites. Listen to this shift in tone. This shift in tone. She starts off, Jess Phillips, giddy, laughing, because again, I make the point. And look, let's be fair. When Clinton lost to Trump, part of me giggled. Part of me giggled. Another part of me was horrified. But it was this weird thing of happy to see her lose, but by the same token, being terrified that he won, and both of those things sitting uneasily beside one another? Well, I've argued that throwaway Democrats, or in this case Blairites, would prefer Bojo or Trump over Sanders or Corbyn. Look at this. You're going to love this.
Unfold. Good evening, Jess. How are you feeling as these results unfold?
She's so happy. She's so happy. She's so happy. Now, if I'm not mistaken, she won her seat. So fair enough. Fair enough. But look at how this happiness, almost on a dime, becomes abject, complete, utter misery.
Can you hear me, Jess, Philip? It's Richmond. Guru Murphy here.
I can hear you, sorry.
Well, look, I mean, yeah, straight face. Actually, you don't have to have a straight face on this show.
He's calling her on it, by the way. He's calling her on it. She's like laughing and she's like, all right. And he's like, straight face. Yeah, straight face. You don't have to have a straight face. Look, you're happy. You're giddy. You're giddy. So fair enough. But this is supposed to be the most miserable day of labor's life going back to 1935. And you seem to be pretty happy and giddy about it. I suppose if I won my seat, I would be happy also. But the speed at which she goes from, I am on the moon, to I am at the utter depths of terror and I'm going to jump off of a cliff. And pivot to a lot of people have been saying I should run for leader. This is amazing. I love this.
What are you thinking?
Are you talking to me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, that wasn't clear. Sorry. I'm really tired. What I'm thinking is, it's just totally devastating, isn't it? It's totally devastating that all the people that I see every day, they're going to have nowhere to turn. And I mean, I should say that thing where we all pretend that we're going to wait and see if the results are better than we thought, but it feels like a kick in the stomach. I can't hear you, so.
I'm just waiting, actually, for your thoughts. I mean, I'm not diving in. I mean,
sorry.
You look emotional and upset, and that's understandable.
She didn't look emotional and upset a moment ago. I mean, this is in all of 30 seconds? Where she was on the moon. And then it's like, this is horrendous. He's like, you seem pretty emotional. I am. It hurts so bad. It hurts so bad. Yes, I'm a cynical SOB on this stuff. I believe that she wanted Labour to lose to this degree? I don't know. I have no idea. Do I believe she considers this an opportunity to take leadership? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Absolutely. 1,000%. I do. And does that potentially lead into her joy in this moment? She could denigrate Corbyn and everything that is Corbynism while simultaneously claiming that people have been talking her up for leadership. Let's hear.
Can you say that again, sorry?
Jess, it's just that you look very emotional, and we know you. We know you're a normal, sane person, so it's very
Yeah, I am very emotional.
Yeah.
I am very emotional, but not just for me or for the Labour Party, or I'm emotional for the people the Labour Party was invented to help. I am emotional that this has happened across the parts of the country that for lots of us we have felt like they were never being listened to. What is not to be emotional about? On the way home from literally seconds after I heard the exit poll, I had to stop my car because there was a woman fleeing in the street, and I can help one person on an individual basis and I can get them to safety, but what am I?
Just so we're clear, she was fleeing in the streets. What was she fleeing? What was she fleeing? Was there a Godzilla chasing her? Was there something that was running behind her trying to get her and gobble her up? What was she fleeing? I mean, think about what this looks like. She's driving in her car, she's listening to the results, and there's a woman just, I suppose, crying and flipping out. And for whatever reason, this woman is fleeing something. It's this weird esoteric feeling that, oh my God, Bojo got elected. He has a stunning majority. The public chose overwhelmingly to decide on get Brexit done. And we have been trying to frustrate getting Brexit done. And they punished us severely for it. And this all-consuming air of Bojo was just behind her. She was just... And she gets out of her car. And she goes running behind the woman. And, like, what is she... Do we believe this? Like, is this believed? Is this believed? Is this taken to be true? A woman was fleeing? A woman was fleeing? What was she fleeing? And did you get out and were you running at top speed to catch this woman that was fleeing? This is ludicrous.
I meant to do structurally. There is no structural solution to the problems that people face where I live. And that is devastating. I can't pretend otherwise.
Would you ever consider leading the Labour Party yourself?
This is the inevitable question. This is the inevitable question that everybody will ask me all night. And the truth of the matter is I'd be lying if I said that millions of people hadn't asked me if I wanted to be the leader of the Labour Party. At the moment, I think that the Labour Party... We've lost 4 elections with 3 really different leaders. And I think it is more than just a personality game. And I know that people like me because I have a personality. And
I love how it's always someone else asks me. I can't get credibility in and of myself. It's this faceless, nameless crowd that is chomping at the bit to get me in office. And I, as a statesman, tell them no. She was licking her lips at Corbyn losing this election. She was licking her lips. I strongly suspect that is true. Jay Wood. I have to be honest, I'm starting to think Sanders is a coward in a way. Do you find it troublesome that he constantly abandons allies that get smeared? Jank, Tulsi, dude, that made viral ad. So, yes and no. So let's answer that. So I did a video where I made the point that Cenk was backing, or Sanders was backing Cenk. Sanders had been on Cenk's show. TYT pivoted itself to be one of those main focal points for the standpoint of Bernie Sanders when he was running in 2016. Even people like AOC. And you can make a strong argument. I know some people don't like him. And I've said before that Cenk probably was my favorite person on TYT when I used to watch the network, especially during the debates. By the same token, that network has pivoted in a particular direction that seems to be more in line with just MSNBC light. By the same token, they did boost Sanders. And I think it's unquestioningly true that Cenk was an ally, or is an ally. From the standpoint of dude that made a video, that's also somewhat true. I mean, he made a viral ad and Sanders' team extended a job to him and then pulled the job away once they got heat for stuff that he did in the past. So this is a yes and a no for me. From the standpoint of a campaign is always looking at threats. What are the things that are going to be used to attack me? What are the things that are going to be used to hit me? What are the positions that I can take that are safer? What are the positions that I take that may be a bit risky, but for the most part that I'm willing to live with? You have ideology that comes into this, meaning how far am I willing to go from the standpoint of policy, be it climate, be it social security, those type of things. And I'm going to be vilified and attacked for those things as radical. However, I am willing to risk that for ideological reasons to stand on that premise. But when you get into things that aren't entirely ideological, then you get into what are the threats that may stop me from winning this race. Then that gets dicier because I would imagine campaigns can be a little bit sketchy about that stuff. and not wanting to take on added risk if they don't want to, if they don't have to. To me, allies are different. Now, to me, all things have been equal. You support your allies and the people who support you. Again, the Tulsi thing. And since that Tulsi came out supporting Sanders, in my head, she gets my tangential support just by definition, before even putting out policy, because she was willing to support my guy when other people weren't. Cenk is somewhat different. Honestly, I think Cenk is somewhat different. I don't know what's right in this. I mean, ultimately, I guess it depends on what's more important. If it's more important to win the election, then Cenk and a network that's named TYT, that for all intents and purposes was perpetrators of a genocide, is difficult to take on. I hope you understand what I mean. TYT has said that the Redskins changed their name because they thought the name was racist. They've said that Rick Perry and Niggerhead Ranch was racist and they should change that name because that name was racist. And yet this irony, or the hypocrisy of it, never comes up, that the Young Turks were responsible for a genocide. Congress has just passed a resolution in the House and in the Senate condemning the Armenian genocide, condemning Turkey for the Armenian genocide. Now, what I just said is true. You can look it up. Fact check me. The group, the movement that was in Turkey at the time, at the fall of the Ottoman Empire, that during the war pushed through these reforms on one end, but also this genocide on the other, was called the Young Turks. Sanders, all things being equal, if Cenk Uygur was running a network called the Young Reformers, no issue. If Cenk had some stuff in his past and that type of stuff, so what? You back your guy. You back your supporters. But this is a little different, and this gets a little dicey. Because the fact is, this genocide did take place. Congress just passed a resolution that from the standpoint of the United States government, of the Senate and the House, meaning Congress, this genocide did take place. And you have Uygur running in the race with a network called the Young Turks that were the purveyors of that particular genocide. What I just said is true. Do you support and do you accept the endorsement under those terms? Be honest. Be honest. Be honest. Be honest. Be honest. Sanders has a history of leaving allies to die on the hill. Some people refuse to acknowledge this. Garden, I acknowledge this in the sense of the gentleman who made that viral ad. Yes, that's true. I acknowledge this in the sense of, what was the other one that the person brought up? Tulsi. See, I don't remember the Tulsi one. Look, as a rule, you don't leave your allies. I mean, look at what Jeremy Corbyn did. Corbyn left Galloway, left Williamson, kept those guys out of the party while listening to people who hated his guts. You don't abandon your allies. And so I have qualms with, I have two things in my head that clash. This, you don't abandon people who for the most part support you. And on the secondary front, this thing of risk and the amount of risk that you take on from a campaign and whether or not that risk is suitable or whether or not that risk is something that you should take on. This issue is dicey to me. I'm sorry. Under normal circumstances, I would say Sanders shouldn't bend to this notion of people who hate him and who are just trying to go after him, be it in endorsements or anything else. But this issue is different. I mean, the genocide did take place. TYT was the purveyor of that genocide. And if his supporters are looking for some way of attacking him, meaning people who are going after Cenk Uygur are finding some way to attack him and uses Sanders as somewhat of a bat for that, genocide denier is not an unreasonable attack point. That's just what I think. I have two things that clash. You don't abandon your allies. By the same token, the genocide thing is a big deal, especially with what's taking place in Turkey now and what Congress has just passed. Trump is probably not going to sign it, but at the very least what Congress has just passed. But I would say this. Jay Wood, I would agree with you. You shouldn't abandon your allies. You shouldn't abandon your allies. And I mean that. I agree with that. I agree with you. It's just on the Cenk Uygur one, it gets, I don't know on that one. That one gets a little dicey to me. And I know that there may be other people with difference of opinions on this. But, you know, if you had somebody who started an organization called the Young Nazis or the Young Klansmen, it would be that much more clear for an American audience. But for people who studied World War I and II, especially the First World War, especially from the standpoint of what was taking place from the Ottoman Empire, that gets grisly. It gets grisly. And if you name an organization after the purveyors of that, that becomes a difficult endorsement to make. I know people are familiar with the Young Turks, and so they don't think of it in those terms. But the moment that you think about it in the terms of supporting somebody that supported the genocide, that gets weird. That gets weird. That gets very, very weird. So I don't know if that's going to be an attack that is used against Uygur in that race, but it gets weird. Jamal, would you also be against a group called the George Washington Society, even though the first president supported slavery and participated in the genocide of American Indians? That is a fair point. That is a fair point. I think the difference here is we're in the United States and we always drop the context of us when it comes to history. I mean, for fuck's sake, we were perpetuated a genocide. I live in Richmond, Virginia. And you can go down Monument Avenue and there's statue after statue after statue about somebody who essentially was a terrorist against the United States government at the time, meaning essentially the advocates of slave society. So I understand the argument. The catch here is this is somebody else's genocide. And I understand your argument. I mean, it's not what I would be against. It's more so... No, that's a good point. The difference is one is American history, the other one is not. And we tend to put more emphasis on somebody else's stuff. But fair point. It's a fair point. Don't forget to check post on Patron. Let's see. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if we go down that road, we end up in a place where all sorts of people get ripped off the dollar. All sorts of statues get taken down. But keep in mind, we're in the States. And my basic argument is, the problem with this is Congress has just passed 2 resolutions affirming the Armenian genocide. There is an organization called the Young Turks, which were the purveyors of that genocide. Sanders having a conversation with somebody and getting and endorsing somebody on this is a weak point. From the standpoint of the American Indians of George Washington, the difference is this is the United States, and nobody would ever make that argument about George Washington. They will make that argument about the Armenian genocide. And if Cenk Uygur just so happened to bring up the George Washington argument, Cenk Uygur would lose this race because people will feel some kind of way with him attacking George Washington. The issue is, it's America. Our context is dropped out of these conversations. Other people's context, tends to be raised. And in raising other people's context, Congress, again, has just passed a resolution condemning the Armenian genocide, which brings this to a focal point and puts it on the table. Yes, I think it's problematic. I think that endorsement is problematic, or potentially problematic. By the same token, once you make the endorsement, that endorsement sticks. The last thing you want to do is them catch you running away. I don't like this notion of dropping allies, so I don't want you to think that's what I mean by this. It's just the risk versus reward thing, and I'm unsure on it. Kills for a living. This is why the left is so weak. You care about the Young Turks' name so much, yet the definition of a young person looking for change. Y'all let people who are smearing you create the narrative every time. Also, sheepdog gonna sheepdog y'all again. I mean, look, that's a fair point, right? I mean, it's not that I think... Look, personally, all things being equal, I don't necessarily think you should drop your LS. I've said this more than one occasion. I said this with Corbyn and the Williamson thing and the Galloway thing. And even from the standpoint of him dropping the guy who did the viral video, even Tulsi. I mean, I don't think you should drop your LS. But this is different. This is different. This is not letting an enemy define the parameters of debate. This is one of those things where the enemy may actually have an attack point on those parameters of debate. Meaning, I don't care if somebody attacks me for something that I can stand on. I do care if somebody attacks me on something that I don't necessarily have any ground to stand on. And I'm sorry, the name of that network, considering that that network has attacked other people for their name, it's offensive. It's offensive. But I feel you kills for a living. All things being equal, you're right. All things being equal, you are right. And I know people are going to disagree with me here. Jay Wood, I agree with you on the name, but I'd make the argument this is nothing new. He was aware of this when he gave the endorsement. Yes, he was aware of it when he gave the endorsement, but was he aware of it when he gave the endorsement? Like, the Young Turks has been around for, 15 years? And in the context of that 15 years, you've had this show, people don't pay attention to the name. In fact, I didn't think anything of the name for the longest time. It was only when I was binging history stuff for the last several years where I was like, oh God, this is radically offensive. Especially in the context of a network that has told the Redskins that they should change their names, that the only reason they don't do it is for money. Well, I mean, come on. You can't have it both ways. He made the endorsement. He made the endorsement to Cenk. He made the endorsement to Cenk because Cenk has backed him and has been and somebody who I think he believes will put forth policy that Sanders or would back Sanders' agenda on policy. I think that's true. The catch is he thinking of this in terms of genocide? The reason why I ask this is his political opponent, the person who's running against Cenk, made the point of genocide denial. It's true that Cenk denied the genocide, but he was shamed back into, okay, yeah, there are many genocide took place. The catch here is your network is named after the purveyors of that. So regardless of him saying, yes, it took place, ultimately it is an attack point. That's all. I mean, look, you could be right. The threat could be much larger than its bite. But I don't know that. I don't know that. And he doesn't know that. So to him, this is, minimize damage. Whether you agree with it or not, I think this is the perspective that they're taking. I got to be honest. I don't know whether or not the TYT stuff is a legit attack point or something that will gain any points for anybody that's doing that other than gaining those points on Uyghur himself. But it seems that Sanders wasn't concerned enough by it to back away from it. Whether you think it was right, whether you think it was wrong, I think that's the thinking behind it. That said, let's go to some good news. At least I consider it to be good news. Sanders is first and second in pretty much all of the polling that is coming out across early states and national polling. And he seems to be drawing closer to Biden in these national polls, if not leading in some of them. This is NPR, PBS, NewsHour, Marist poll. Now, there's supposed to be a debate tomorrow. The last thing I heard about the debate was that people were talking about not participating because they didn't want to cross the picket line. I need to get more information on that specific point. But PBS is sponsoring this debate. So NPR, PBS, NewsHour, Marist poll. There are a few interesting tidbits here. So for one, Biden leads with 24%, followed closely by Sanders with 22%. That's awesome. These two are drawing closer and closer. Warren is third at 17%, meaning she's not even close, and Buttigieg is at 13%. The race has boiled down to Sanders and Biden. Good. That's what it should have been the first time around. You have two very specific aspects of the Democratic Party and what it could be. One, take me back to the old days and make me feel good. Just make me feel good. Just take Trump away. And the other one is, going back to the old days is not enough. We need fundamental, radical change, not just in this party, but also in this country. Now, one gets a ton of support from the youth in epic numbers. The other gets support from the elderly in epic numbers. Let's look down further. So Biden gets more Democrats, fair enough, that makes sense. Independents goes to Sanders, slim margins. Progressives goes to Sanders in spades. Moderates goes to Biden in spades. Not college graduates go to Biden. Strangely enough, slim lead. College graduates go to Sanders. Oddly enough. I mean, these are somewhat, trends tend to go in the other way. But nevertheless, it's the poll. White voters, Biden, Warren, Buttigieg, Sanders. Sanders gets mostly people of color. And just think, in the last election, they said he was the white candidate. Here's this one. By a 54 to 44 margin, Democrat voters think it's more important to have a nominee who has the best chance of beating Trump than who shares their position on most issues. Now, put to you that the only reason Biden has this 24% is for that reason alone, electability. There may be some people who love Biden, but ultimately their issue is he keeps the monsters at bay. And right here. But this one, and a 49 to 42% margin says more important to have a nominee who will move in a different direction than former President Obama's policies. And herein you have Sanders with 22%. Oh, this is fascinating politics. This is fascinating politics. Like, ultimately, you have two factions of the party that are pushing hard for their ends. And once these other people start falling out the race, the question becomes, who are those people mostly going to go to? Now, this is one poll. Here's another one. Morning Consult. Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina. Biden, 29%. Sanders, 24%. Sanders, up 3. He's more movement than anybody else in this poll. Warren at a distant 15%. If you look at national, 31%, Sanders, 22%, Warren, 15%. Again, Sanders versus Biden. When you look at the field over time, let's put in Biden. All right, let's put in Warren. Now, if you notice, at one point, Warren had taken first. Oh, I'm sorry, I did that backwards. All right, this is Warren's line. Tanked, plummeted. But again, that's a trend. I've been calling this for a while. Sanders' line surges. Biden's line tanks for a while, but somewhat on the upswing. But as you look at it, I just make the point that Warren has plummeted. This race is between Sanders and Biden. Unless something happens, this race is between Sanders and Biden. Another main point. Look at the second person. Biden's second person is Sanders. 26% of the people who are voting for Biden would go to Sanders. 21% will go to Warren. 12% will go to Buttigieg. Sanders supporters go to Warren. 33% go to Warren. Wow. 28% go to Biden. That used to be Biden, if I'm not mistaken. And Warren supporters go to Sanders. 34% by majority. I mean, by a clear, significant majority. The reason I show that is because I know that some other networks have made the point that maybe these people are going to Buttigieg. And that may be true that maybe the exterior are going to Buttigieg, but the pay dirt ultimately, overwhelmingly, goes to Sanders, especially if she's out of the race. That said, Buttigieg voters go to Warren. White, working, upper class. That trend has found itself in all trends. In fact, including the NPR poll. And there was another one that I wanted to show. But long story short, from the standpoint of being in a position to win, he's there. He's there. I agree with you guys. I don't want him making the mistakes that Corbyn made in the sense of alienating his allies out of fear and terror that you're going to be taken down or that you're going to lose. I agree with you. Fair enough. But from the standpoint of a campaign that is, I got to be honest, there have been things that he's done that I didn't necessarily think were right, but I ended up being mostly wrong.
Both of you. I'm sorry.
On that point. I mean, Sanders' strategy in this, for the most part, has been to focus on policy. And there were times where I was concerned that Warren was coming up behind him and taking his spot. But for the most part, in his dark days, even during the point of having a heart attack, they stuck with the message. And that message, for the most part, has won out. He, whatever you think of his political strategy, and whatever you think of him not mainly attacking people like Warren and so forth, he's been able to take the number 2 spot firmly. And it's very possible that him not hitting Warren is the thing that's allowing 33% of her supporters who will potentially support him if she loses. That's a positive thing. That's a positive thing. So I consider those to be excellent polls going into this debate. And I am unsure on what is going to happen in this debate. Tulsi Gabbard is not going to be in it. Andrew Yang's supposed to be in it, but many of the people are saying that they're not going to cross the picket line after Sanders said he wasn't going to cross the picket line. And I don't know if anything has changed in that process. So I will be looking for information on that. And I will be looking for information on that. Rob R., I bet Cenk still doesn't know how Tulsi feels. You know, here's an interesting thing. I saw something that said Cenk finally came up and says, okay, the Russiagate thing was BS. That's shocking to me. I need to find that video, but if so, that would be shocking to me. Because that would be him admitting, you know what, I was wrong. For 3 years, I was absolutely, completely, entirely, 100% wrong on this particular issue. And I debated all of these people, Matei, Dorr. I debated all of these people, and I called all these people wrong. And I, Cenk Uygur, was entirely, infinitely wrong. I was wrong. Burning is his own lightning rod. No. Move on from Cenk. No, I'm not staying with Cenk. The media is saying Elizabeth Warren said it first. I'm doubtful. Burnman 23. That was a misleading title. He just had a different Russia puppet theory. Yeah, I mean, he was saying that Russia, Vladimir Putin was giving the man instructions. I mean, come on. Come on. All right, so let's move on from the polling for the moment. Sanders, strong position in the polling. I love it. Absolutely love it. I want to go on to James Comey. I want to go over the Comey. We've had what I call a flagrant violation, to call it mildly, from the standpoint of the FBI and their spying on the campaign of Trump. Now, I've said for the longest time that this seemed like it was bogus. It seemed like it was BS. And the Steele report, which was entirely BS, a political document, my argument was in the same way that, especially after Mueller, in the same way that they said that it was necessary to have this investigation, which essentially was based on a conspiracy theory. Well, I think it's absolutely necessary to have an investigation into why a conspiracy theory was allowed to prosper in this way. The IG report comes out and is damning with 17 errors that had taken place, essentially errors that they intentional errors, misjudgments, falsehood, lies, just outright deceit, in order to continuously spy on the Trump campaign. Now, some of this was so egregious that the FBI found out that the guy was working for the CIA, meaning Carter Page, and withheld that information from the FISA court in order to continue to spy. Oh, it was egregious. It was egregious. Now, Comey was the guy who was in charge, right? So Comey has some explaining to do. When the IG report first came out, this is what Comey said.
How can Comey claim complete vindication from the IG report?
The institution, finally the truth gets told. I hope it's not.
Former campaign advisor Carter Page.
He's right, I was wrong. I was overconfident in the procedures that the FBI and Justice had built over 20 years. I'm responsible for that. That's why I'm telling you, I was wrong. I was overconfident as director in our procedures. And it's important that a leader be accountable and transparent. If I were still director, I'd be saying exactly the same thing that Chris Wray is saying, which is we are going to get to the bottom of this, because the most important question is it systemic? Are there problems in other cases?
Okay, that was Comey today. When Comey appeared on CNN the very day the IG report was released, he sounded a lot more defiant about the conclusions it made. Listen.
Do you think this is vindication?
It is. I mean, the FBI's had to wait 2 years while the president and his followers lied about the institution. Finally, the truth gets told. I hope it's not too late, but on all the important things, it tells the truth. They don't want to talk about what we just...
He said, I feel vindicated. Now, the catch is, when he goes to talk to Chris Wallace, he takes a different tact. Because the moment that you start digging into the report itself, the IG Horowitz just has this weird tendency to act as if everything is okay on the title, but they put damning items in the report itself. This is Comey talking to Chris
Horowitz concludes
Wallace, and Chris Wallace taking him to task on the failures of the FBI in this case. I mean, it's utterly astonishing. Let's hear Wallace for a moment.
3 separate teams made significant errors in 4 separate FISA applications on one of the FBI's most significant cases. I mean, the investigation of President Trump and his campaign.
He was Trump. I have to keep correcting you. President Trump was not being investigated. His campaign was not being investigated. 4 Americans, 2 of whom were no longer associated with the campaign, were being investigated.
Okay. He was asked how he explains it. Horowitz, here he is.
It's unclear what the motivations were. On the one hand, gross incompetence, negligence. On the other hand, intentionality.
Gross negligence.
Here's the catch. When you're opening up a FISA warrant, it's not just on that person. It's people who are in that person's sphere. Meaning, you can look at one guy, but not necessarily having to identify that guy. You can just say, I'm looking at Carter Page. And it was unclear on why they were investigating Carter Page in the first place. I mean, I know they said the Russia stuff, but ultimately they found that the guy was a CIA asset and that Christopher Steele was full of shit. They even went to one of Christopher Steele's sources, and his sources told him that Christopher Steele was full of shit. That didn't stop them from continuing to get FISA warrants on Carter Page. Here's answer. And keep in mind, that's important. Because he's trying to make the point, look, we weren't spying on the Trump campaign. We were just spying on people who were working with the Trump campaign at some point. Okay. Wallace's point is, he's saying that he doesn't know why you were continuing to spy on this guy, whether it was intentional or whether it was this kind of this unintentional bias or implicit bias. Either way, it was massively egregious. Now, listen to the back and forth that they have between Comey and Wallace. This is awesome.
Or they intended to do it. They intended to lie to the FISA court. You were in charge during a lot of this, sir. And in fact, you signed the FISA application.
Intentionality, gross incompetence, negligence. On the other hand, intentionality.
Gross negligence, or they intended to do it. They intended to lie to the FISA court. You were in charge during a lot of this, sir. And in fact, you signed the FISA applications.
Sure, I think I signed at least 2 or 3 of them. He doesn't conclude that there was intentional misconduct by these career.
He doesn't conclude it because he can't tell. He doesn't conclude it because he can't tell. That's vitally fucking important. Meaning, the fact that the IG has come on and says, look, I don't know if it was an intentional or I don't know if it was incompetence. I don't know which one. It could be gross negligence or they could be intentionally going after this. And because I can't determine which one it is, I put down both. Now, his point to Comey was, well, look, the guy said he can't tell whether it was intentional. Comey said, well, he didn't define it as intentional. He says, yeah, but that's only because he couldn't tell if it was intentional. Intentional was one of the options that he put out as it potentially could be. Now, you require an investigation to determine whether or not it was intentional. That's vitally important. It is possible, if it was intentional, that the intelligence services of this country, and maybe even higher, tried to take down somebody coming into office that they didn't necessarily want to come into office, protecting their candidate. Remember, Comey was the one handling, if I'm not mistaken, the Clinton case, and comes out clearing Clinton on those charges despite issuing a damning report. The IG report on the handling of the case with Clinton also came back with these kind of damning assertions of these guys being grossly negligent in the handling of this case. I guess my point is, Comey looks bad here. Ultimately, they opened up a case built on propaganda, innuendo, just locker room talk, and political operations on a particular candidate, and they opened up a campaign on that. I mean, a case on that. Comey was head of that. Comey was head of that. He said, I feel vindicated. And then the very next day, yeah, I guess it was our mistake. It was our bad, etc., etc., etc. I want to know, and it is very important that John Durham gets to the bottom, was there intentionality on trying to stop Trump from getting elected? And I'm sorry, the Ukraine story is true. Now, I don't necessarily mean all the conspiracy theory stuff that Trump is saying, but the Ukraine, submissive Ukraine, was working with the Democratic Party in order to put out information to hurt Trump through Manafort. The media can pretend that that didn't happen all they want. The question becomes, what is Durham investigating, meaning from the standpoint of his criminal investigations, and will he be putting down charges, and who will those charges be aimed at? And people who are within the context of the CIA during the time that all of this was taking place, meaning Brennan and Clapper, these guys are going to be, Clapper wasn't part of the CIA, but these guys are going to be on the same media networks that is analyzing the reports that is coming out by Durham that may implicate those very same people, including one James Comey.
Special agents. No, he just says it's one of two things and he can't decide: gross negligence or it was intentional misconduct.
Well,
that's what he said.
I've read his report. He says, we are not concluding that there was intentional misconduct by FBI.
Did you hear what he just said here?
I did. I don't know the context of that. I've read.
He was asked specifically, how do you explain it? And he said gross negligence or intentionality.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. He doesn't find intentionality, but that.
He doesn't find intentionality because he can't find it. Wallace's point is, it's on the table as one of the options because he can't explain this level of gross incompetence. That's amazing. That's amazing. God, he looks so bad in this. And the intelligence services, who many on the left have deified, come out looking insane. This is The Intercept dealing with the IG report. Oh, damn it, he got rid of my numbers. All right, so just a few excerpts from the DOJ report. We identified multiple instances in which factual assertions relied upon in the first FISA application were inaccurate, incomplete, or unsupported by appropriate documentation based on information the FBI had in its possession at the time of the application was filed. As more fully described in Chapter 5, based upon information known to the FBI in October 2016, the first application contained the following 7 significant accuracies and omissions. Now, this 7 accuracies and omissions was followed up by an additional 10 as they went on getting the FISA warrants. Here's another one. Specifically, based upon the information known to the FBI in October 2016, the first application contains 7 significant inaccuracies and omissions. Among those significant inaccuracies and omissions, the FBI concealed that Page had been working with the CIA in connection with his dealings with Russia and had notified the CIA case managers of at least some of those contacts after he was approved as an operational contact with Russia. The FBI lied about both the timing and the substance of Page's relationship with the CIA, vastly overstated the value and cooperation of Steele's prior work with the U.S. government to make him appear more credible than he actually was, and conceal from the court serious reasons to doubt the credibility or reliability of Steele's key source. Here's another point. 99.7% of the FISA warrants are approved. Think about what I just said. Secret court, 99.7% of the FISA warrants are approved. It is unclear whether or not this flagrant misconduct is isolated to Trump or whether it's visited upon other citizens. And until you have some kind of review of all of that stuff, it's unclear whether or not this is just normal behavior and the way that they go about getting these warrants. I think that is a massive big deal, and it's something that Republicans are now complaining about because it's something that adversely affected Trump. But you have a fig leaf rubber stamp process that allows you to spy pretty much on anybody, including somebody that is running for president of the United States. That's extraordinary. Among the most significant new acts of deceit was the FBI omitted the fact that Steele's primary subsource, who the FBI found credible, had made statements in January 2017 raising significant questions about the reliability of allegations included in the FISA application, including, for example, that he or she did not recall any discussions with Person 1 containing WikiLeaks, and that there was nothing bad about the communications between Kremlin and the Trump team, and that he or she did not report to Steele in January 2016 that Page had met with Session. In other words, Steele's own source told the FBI that Steele was lying about what the source said, an obvious critical fact that the FBI simply concealed from the FISA court because it knew how devastating that would be to be able to continue to spy on Page. This is damning. This is damning. And you know what's messed up about this? All of these guys kept saying it wasn't the Steele dossier, it wasn't the Steele dossier, that wasn't what we were relying on. The IG report makes it plain. They were relying on the Steele dossier. Without the Steele dossier, none of this stuff happens. And they lied the entire way, saying we had more than just the Steele dossier. And then you find out that the FBI was lying in order to keep this case and prop this case up in order to continue to spy on elements that work with the Trump campaign. Let's be specific in the way that Comey would say it. This is massive. I mean, we're talking about Papadopoulos being spied on with human sources and a honeypot. And all of these spies are flying and swirling around the Trump campaign. This is utterly extraordinary. Even when they told him that Carter Page was working with the CIA, they still continued to use him. They just buried that information and continue to spy on him. Utterly extraordinary. Outright extraordinary. So right here, about the warrant application submitted regarding Page, the IG report, in his own words, found that the FBI personnel fell short of the requirement in FBI policy that to ensure that all factual statements in a FISA application are scrupulously accurate. Specifically, we identified multiple instances in which factual assertions relied upon in the first FISA application were inaccurate, incomplete, unsupported by appropriate documentation based on the information the FBI had in its possession at the time the application was filed. So shouldn't the question be asked, if that's true, then why were they spying on Carter Page? And why were they spying on these elements of the Trump campaign? And what was the motivation for them to do so? And how is that not pertinent? Especially when it was a presidential campaign that could have been taken down in a soft coup as a response to A, the Mueller investigation, but B, the fact that all of these investigations, for the most part, were made out of sand. They were spying on his campaign. Call it what it is. Comey kept signing the FISA warrant when they knew the FISA warrant was essentially made up whole cloth. They were lying in order to keep those warrants going on the various campaigns. I don't think it's insane at all for the Trump campaign to ask the question, where did the spying stop? Meaning, was there political motive in spying on his campaign in the way that they were spying on his campaign? Now, Barr disagrees with the IG report's findings. And Barr and Durham Durham is using subpoena power, meaning he can subpoena people. He's a criminal at this point in investigation. They potentially know things that the IG doesn't. So I'm looking forward to hearing their report, especially if they're disagreeing with elements that came out of this report. Either way, this report is damning. This report is damning. And I know the IG put it as if it wasn't, as if this wasn't a damning report. But the moment that you read into the report, it was. It was. And last part. The FBI's heavy reliance on the Steele dossier to obtain the FISA warrant, a fact that many leading national security reporters spent 2 years denying occurred, was particularly concerning because, as the IG report put it, we found that the FBI did not have information corroborating the specific allegations against Carter Page in the Steele's reporting when it relied upon his reports in the first FISA application or subsequent renewal applications. It's put in technical talk, but you get the point. The FBI was massively unscrupulous in spying on this campaign. And I'm sorry, this is not a political issue for me. This is one of those things that it can happen to pretty much any campaign. And we need to be very clear on whether or not we want intelligence services with this much power. And not just intelligence services, by the way. You need to investigate whether or not, how far up the chain this went, seeing as the political opponents of Trump had every incentive in the world for wanting something like this to take place. I am not casting blame on this. I'm just saying it needs to be investigated. If you're going to make the argument to me that Trump and Russia needs to be investigated, this damn sure needs to be investigated. They've just found that what the FBI was doing was just making shit up in order to continue to spy on a campaign. Basically. And we need to find out why. That's why I support the investigation that Durham is running. I want to know why. Let's see. I thought I saw. Where is it? There we are. Trump is literally on tape saying he sexually assaults women, and the left worries about a name. Straight up bitches. So sick of this shit. Stop worrying about the smears. You got to worry about the smears. You can't worry about all of them as an absolute. Don't misunderstand me. You accept certain ones and you don't. However, a name matters considering that the organization you're defending has attacked other people for a name. Like, you can't have it both ways. I don't understand your argument here. Is your argument, hey, we shouldn't care about potential attacks that may come in? Well, I don't think you should care about all of them, but you should care about the ones that have a little bit of steam behind them. Yes, I do believe that. That's not an absolute. Jeremy Corbyn got raped over there, all because of the way he was running his various campaigns and the things that he was being attacked on. I'm saying there are some things that you could take an attack on, and some things you don't need to. Yes, Donald Trump says he straight up grabbed women by the pussies. He did say that. By the same token, there's a network that's named after a genocide. I mean, I feel you, dude, but I don't think this is minor in the sense of him being hit for this. But just disagree. We disagree. Yeah, Comey, it comes to account. I want to talk about this one also. I didn't get the chance to talk about the Ukraine stuff. So let's do it now. So, Democrats filed 2 articles of impeachment. One having to do with essentially Trump overstating his presidential powers, overstepping his presidential authority. The second one had to do with obstruction of justice. Now, the obstruction of justice one is nonsense. The White House believes that what is taking place in the House of Representatives is entirely partisan. It is entirely partisan. The White House doesn't participate. I wouldn't either, nor would I help them in what I consider to be a partisan witch hunt, especially after the last partisan witch hunt found that it was literally indeed a witch hunt made of smoke and mirrors. And I'm talking about Russiagate. Well, What about this? Now you have Ukrainegate. Ukrainegate is all... I remember watching CNN when Sunderland gives his testimony. Now, Sunderland, diplomat, is supposed to be the guy who is intermediary, meaning he's the only person who's contacting another person that's in the Ukraine to tell him what he's saying. And his point is, he relayed this information to Ukrainian advisor that there was going to be a quid pro quo. That Trump wasn't going to get, or that Ukraine wasn't going to get its aid package unless there was a quid pro quo on getting an investigation. Now, the thing is, the person who was supposedly told this, Andriy Yermak, is saying that this never took place. And initially, Sunderland, who gave his testimony, updated his testimony. Now, I'll show you what I mean. Initially, his testimony was that there was no quid pro quo. Then he updated it to say there was. CNN takes that, chest thumps with, we got him. And for hours, run in a loop on MSNBC and CNN that Sunderland has essentially given them the smoking gun and they got him. Listen to this. This is a cross-examination by Republicans, one of which that was not necessarily raised because that's not necessarily something that MSNBC and CNN wanted to lavish a huge amount of time on. But this is an evisceration of what Sunderland is saying, and I'm going to show you the secondary evisceration of what Sunderland is saying.
Sometimes you seem to make direct connections, and sometimes they seem to be dead ends. I kind of want to clear up what are the dead ends and what are the direct connections. Yesterday, Ambassador Volker, who I consider to be very talented and a man of integrity, and I believe you think he's a man of integrity, correct?
I do.
He testified that the President of the United States did not tie either a meeting with the President, a phone call, or any aid to investigations of Burisma 2016 or the Bidens, that the President did not do that. And you've testified that the President did not tell you that he tied them either, correct?
I did testify to that, although when Ambassador Volker and I were working on the statement and negotiating with the Ukrainians, it was clear to Ambassador Volker that a meeting would not happen without the Burisma in 2016. That was very clear to Ambassador Volker.
And how do you know that? What did he say to you? Because he says that was not clear to him. In fact, he says that's not the case. He was working on that. He knows that that's what the President wanted, but he didn't have it as this was a requirement.
Oh, I strongly disagree with that portion of his testimony. It was absolutely a requirement, or we would have just had the meeting and been done with it.
What about the aid? He says that they weren't tied, that the aid was not tied.
And I didn't say they were conclusively tied either. I said I was presuming it.
Okay, and so the President never told you they were tied. So your testimony, his testimony is consistent, and the President did not tie aid to investigations.
That's correct.
Okay, he also testified that he spoke to Giuliani and that Giuliani did not relate that he was tying on behalf of the President or on the President's behalf aid, and then in fact, Giuliani never said to him that aid was tied to investigations. Now, the question I have for you is, did you ever have a conversation with Giuliani that did not involve Volker? Because your testimony is a lot of we's and us's. So do you and Giuliani have a separate conference, separate phone call where Giuliani told you that the aid was tied? Because Volker says, and if he was on all your phone calls, Volker says that never happened.
No, I did have a few conversations. I don't recall how many because I don't have the records with Mr. Giuliani directly when Mr. Volker wasn't available.
And did Giuliani say to you, go ahead, what were you going to say?
I don't believe I testified that Mr. Giuliani told me that aid was tied.
Oh, I think, see, this is part of the problem, Ambassador Sondland, and I just want to walk you through this, is you've said to us everyone was in the loop, and everyone knew. Now, hold on a second. I've listened to you today, as a lot of people, and not only are you...
Now, he did say that, by the way. Everybody was in the loop, meaning Sondland implicated Giuliani, Trump. He implicated essentially Pompeo. Pompeo had to put out a statement saying, I have no idea what Sondland is talking about. But Trump pushed back also came out screaming like a banshee, saying no quid pro quo, no quid pro quo. He was looking insane. But listen to this. I mean, he's pushing back his statement. Because again, Sondland says everyone was in the loop. Sondland makes the point of a quid pro quo. And CNN, MSNBC runs with it as if now we got what we need in order to impeach Trump. This is the testimony that they're using for this. So let's hear them out.
Answer somewhat circular. Frequently, you've contradicted yourself in your own answer. Now, the text messages and emails that you put up there, Kurt Volker walked us through, and he has a completely different understanding of what you were saying than what you're saying you were saying. So I'm a little confused as to how everyone's in the loop, because if Giuliani didn't give you any express statement, then it can't be that you believe this from Giuliani. Now, let me tell you right now, because is Donald Trump your friend?
No, we're not friends.
Okay. Do you like the president?
Yes.
Okay. Well, after you testified, Chairman Schiff ran out and gave a press conference and said he gets to impeach the President of the United States because of your testimony. And if you pull up CNN today, right now, their banner says Sondland ties Trump to withholding aid. Is that your testimony today, Ambassador Sondland, that you have evidence that Donald Trump tied the investigations to the aid? Because I don't think you're saying that.
I've said repeatedly, Congressman, I was presuming. I also said that President Trump...
So no one told you.
This is what they're impeaching him on. Just so we're clear. Just so we're clear. Quid pro quo. Sondland gives up the goods. Everybody was in the loop. There was a quid pro quo. The Ukraine understood what was up. I was the one, for the most part, that made it clear to the Ukraine that, that they knew what's up. And now he says, I was presuming. I presumed this. This gets worse.
Not just the president. Giuliani didn't tell you. Mulvaney didn't tell you. Nobody, Pompeo didn't tell you. Nobody else on this planet told you that Donald Trump was tying aid to these investigations. Is that correct?
I think I already testified.
No, answer the question. Is it correct? No one on this planet told you that Donald Trump was tying this aid to the investigations. Because if your answer is yes, then the chairman's wrong and the headline on CNN is wrong. No one on this planet told you that President Trump was tying aid to investigations. Yes or no?
Yes.
So, you really have no testimony today that ties President Trump to a scheme to withhold aid from Ukraine in exchange for these investigations.
Other than my own presumption.
Which is not.
Other than my own presumption. I have nothing to tie Trump to this other than my own presumption. This gets worse. Right here. God damn it. It got rid of my highlights, but that's okay. So right here. So the person who he's talking about that he bumped into, Andrea Yermak, that's this gentleman. This gentleman is giving a different recall of events. Now, Zelensky has already said that, look, I wasn't being pressured by Trump. In a quid pro quo, I don't act that way, I don't operate in that way. But this was the gentleman who supposedly Sondland bumped into to tell and get across that there was going to be a quid pro quo. Listen to what he says. Listen, I want to tell you straight, Yermak told Time in an interview on December 4th. The first time he's openly discussed. Of course, now, when I watch these shows on television, my name often comes up and I see people whom I recognize, whom I met and know, he says. That is their personal opinion, especially the positions that are expressed under oath. I have my own truth. So right here. One of the American diplomats who attended the meeting, Gordon Sondland, the U.S. diplomat to the European Union, testified before the inquiry last month that he pulled Yermak aside for the Warsaw meeting and delivered an important message. U.S. aid to Ukraine will probably not resume until Zelensky's government announced 2 investigations that could implicate President Trump's political rivals. I told you, Mr. Yermak, that I believe that the resumption of U.S. aid would likely not occur until the Ukraine took some kind of action on the public statement that we have been discussing for many weeks. Sondland testified. This is what Sondland said before Congress. Based on the testimony from Sondland and other witnesses, the final report from the House Intelligence Committee concluded last week that Sondland made this offer of a quid pro quo clear to Yermak that day in Warsaw. Following this meeting, Ambassador Sondland pulled aside Trump-Zelensky advisor Mr. Yermak to explain that he hold on to security assistance was conditioned, or the hold on security assistance was conditioned on the public announcement of the Burisma Biden and the 2016 election interference investigation report states. Now that's what the official report states. This is what Yermak says, meaning Yermak is the guy who they're talking about. Yermak disputes this. Gordon and I were never alone together, he said, when Time asked about the Warsaw meeting. We bumped into each other in the hallway next to the escalator as I was walking out. He recalls that several members of the American and Ukrainian delegation were also nearby, as well as bodyguards and hotel staff, though he's not sure if any of them heard the brief conversation with Sondland. And I remember everything is fine with my memory. We talked about how well the meeting went. That's all we talked about, Yermak says. Now, in an initial statement to impeachment inquiry in October, Sondland said he never knew the U.S. aid was conditional on the investigation that Trump wanted. But the following month, Sondland amended his testimony in a sworn statement in which he described a conversation with Yermak in Warsaw. I now recall speaking with the individual Mr. Yermak, where I said that resumption of U.S. aid would not occur until the Ukraine provided the public anti-corruption statement that we had been discussing for many weeks, Sondland wrote in the amended testimony. Well, this is a problem. I mean, the guy who they're saying in their impeachment inquiry was at the heart of this, who received this message, or who got this message, and reported this message back to apparently the Ukrainian leader, is saying that this conversation that Sondland is talking about never took place. When asked, did anyone try to get him before the Senate meetings or the House meetings, they said no. He said nobody called me for testimony, and if they did call me, I would have told them that this never took place. Trump is being impeached. And a lot of this is based off of Sondland, the quid pro quo, the leaked, you could say, conversation. But the catch becomes, if it is indeed true that Sondland, or at the very least Yermak, is saying this conversation didn't take place, do they really have the goods to go after Trump on this notion of impeachment? The House Republicans have already said that this is a no. Mitch McConnell is not going to hold up time on this, and they're going to kill impeachment whenever it gets to the Senate. Donald Trump is going to be raising money off of this hand over fist. He raised, $130 million in the third quarter. And from the standpoint of the United States and the way we look at it, impeachment is underwater. Meaning, at best, it's 50-50 whether the public really wants Trump impeached. And whether the public wants Trump impeached or not, it's almost besides the point that he's not necessarily going to be pulled out of office, nor did you pull the public over to your side in mass numbers in order to rally against Trump. This was out and out failure of a policy. This gets worse. Nancy Pelosi is going to give Trump several wins. NAFTA 2.0, meaning USMCA, is going to get passed. A $738 billion military budget, the National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, that's passed. They also passed the security, the mass surveillance issue, that passed. And Trump is going to get a tentative deal with China. And from the standpoint of impeachment, he will get a boost where the political campaigns that are going to go into Iowa and go into the 2020 election are going to be in some part about impeachment as opposed to about the policies whereby Trump absolutely, utterly, and entirely failed. This impeachment thing, I got to be honest, I find this to be nonsensical. And there's a loss of legitimacy that takes place the moment that you try to impeach Trump on a conspiracy theory, meaning Russiagate. I would hope the people who are pushing Russiagate at this point can come to Jesus and realize and honestly acknowledge that this was indeed a conspiracy theory. The IG's report on the leaking of the information, the stuff, the fabrications, the lying, saying that they mistakenly fabricated information seems to be, nonsensical to me. It was nonsense. And then we immediately transition over into another. It's almost as if you can't beat the guy in an election, so you try to do all of this hijinks. But 46% say impeach and remove from office, support or post. 46% support. That's the average, yes. You're about 50-50. 46.7 says remove, 47 says no. Oh, they have it backwards up here. I guess my point is, either way, you're about 50-50 in regards to whether or not the public wants Trump impeached. And even if you want him impeached, there's a secondary question of whether you want him removed. And fact is, if he's not going to be removed, if you didn't get the public massively on your side, Nancy Pelosi says she wouldn't do this unless you have Republican support. She does not. And yet, here we are. And the catch becomes, what effect does this have on the election? I suppose you're going to have a base that is going to be pissed off. And that pissed off base will send money, they will agitate, and they will vote. And they will vote. Let's see. There's another one that I wanted to get to. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. And Mrs. Thomas is going to join me for help with the patron appreciation. This is an argument designed for you to move goalposts. Agree, JT. This is another unneeded disaster. Yeah. I mean, look, if I am running against Trump, my argument wants to be this guy failed on a whole host of ways. I don't want to, understand what that means if you're saying you're going to take him out based on this nonsense. When you let Bush stay in office, I can fair enough see if you say we're going to censor the president because the president did X, fair enough. But it's one thing to try to take the guy out of office when you have an election literally next year. It's one thing if you put up his failings and you let the public decide. You are, for a second time, trying to find a way to get him out of office. And you didn't accept the fact that he was in office at all. These are self-owned to some degree. Hatred, vitriol, not accepting the election results, not accepting him as a legitimate president, all sorts of these things come to play. But either way, you're not going to take him out of office. He is getting money from running on this notion of impeachment. And this is not a positive. I just don't think this is a positive. I think this is going to end up biting Democrats in the arse, as they would say in Scotland. So, let's see. Mrs. Thomas is going to join me. So let's go to a short commercial break.
Ain't got no commercial break.
With Chris Wallace.
FISA applications on one of the FBI's most significant cases. I mean, the investigation of President Trump and his campaign.
He was Trump. I have to keep correcting you. President Trump was not being investigated. His campaign was not being investigated. 4 Americans, 2 of whom were no longer associated with the campaign, were being investigated.
Okay. He was asked how he explains it. Horowitz, here he is.
It's unclear what the motivations were. On the one hand, gross incompetence, negligence. On the other hand, intentionality.
Gross negligence, or they intended to do it. They intended to lie to the FISA court. You were in charge during a lot of this, sir. And in fact, you signed the FISA applications.
Sure, I think I signed at least 2 or 3 of them. He doesn't conclude that there was intentional misconduct by these career special agents.
No, he just says it's one of 2 things and he can't decide. Gross negligence or it was intentional misconduct.
Well,
that's what he said.
I've read his report. He says, we are not concluding that there was intentional misconduct by FBI.
Did you hear what he just said here?
I did. I don't know the context of that. I've read.
He was asked specifically, how do you explain it? And he said gross negligence or intentionality.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, he doesn't find intentionality, but that doesn't make it any less important. As director, you are responsible for this. I was responsible.
We are back. Mrs. Thomas is with me. We are doing the news. There's still music playing, but that's okay. Got our elevator music thing going on. All right, let's see. You're bobbing to that.
Somebody said the piano is the best.
Yeah, that one is. I like that one too. That one's a good one. So Mrs. Thomas is going to help me with the contributor appreciation ones. She was screaming in the background. She's like, "Get to the Patron! Get to the Patron!" I was like, "All right, baby, I got you." It didn't happen exactly that way, but it was close.
I was asleep, and he was like, "Help me!" No, I'm just joking.
No, that was accurate. That was accurate.
What have you done? Like the patron spiel?
I've done the patron spiel. Last year, 91 corporations paid nothing in federal income taxes, including Amazon, GM, Delta. When politicians tell you can't afford education, healthcare, childcare, or clean water, they're lying. We're going to make huge corporations pay their fair share. And I just said that one.
Okay. What else we got to do?
Patron spiel.
Oh, okay. So there's only 130 people here. I think we lost some by taking taking the time for me to get on. So thank you guys if you are still here with us. If you are not aware, today's show is the Contributor Appreciation Show. Once a week, Jamarl takes a show out to give thanks for everyone who contributes to the channel. So if you are supporting and you are donating on PayPal, Super Chat, Streamlabs, and the Patreon platform, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you are not contributing monetarily, excuse me, just make sure that you are subscribed. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. And if you are not familiar with what Patreon is, it is a platform that allows you to commit a monetary amount each month because you enjoy the content that a creator is putting out and you want to make sure that they can continue to put out that content. So you say, I'm going to give $1, $5, $10, whatever you want each month, and you become a patron on the Patreon platform. And once a week, we put a post on the Patreon platform to say, what do you want to hear on this week's Contributor Appreciation Show? And that is what fuels today's content. Jamarl is not the best at going on there and finding the content.
What do you mean? You mean on Patreon?
Yes.
A lot of people don't go on Patreon.
Yeah, but a lot of them do. And when I put the post up and they say, this is what I want to hear.
And oftentimes you'd say, hey babe, there are people on Patreon who want to hear X or Y.
Right, and
or
so
Z.
Since I didn't do that, you aren't hitting the ones that you need to hit.
Hence
my ass being on here.
Yes.
So, welcome to Contributor Appreciation for whatever time this might be.
So this guy,
excuse me,
this gentleman, Van Drew. Now, let's see. Come on.
it's right before the holidays,
There we are.
and these staffers just quit their jobs to stand up for their
All right.
democratic values.
So Van Drew is a Democrat.
Who is this guy? Okay.
Now, Van Drew, when he ran, the DCCC put their thumb on the scale to help this guy get into office over a lefty progressive candidate. Van Drew is now a Republican. He's switched parties. Now, what they're showing are, there's like 5 staffers or something quit their jobs over the holidays because they greatly disagree with him switching over to Republicans. They say it's an issue of their values. They're standing up for democratic values, and this guy's now a Republican. But again, this guy was a Democrat who just switched over to Republican, and it wasn't like he was a Democrat for like 20 years. This was some of the recent campaign that the DCCC supported. Now, if you remember, the DCCC has made it apparent that they can put their thumb on the scale, but if there's a lefty that tries to take an incumbent spot, that's a no-no, and that person would get censured. However, they've been shown to put their thumb on the scale in the various states. I mean, Steny Hoyer told the guy to get out the race at one point, saying, you're not the person we picked.
Right.
The guy audio taped Hoyer telling him this, and Hoyer flipped out, oh my God, I can't believe your video, you audio taped us telling you to get out the race. Well, here we have the DCCC putting his thumb on the scale, getting a guy who, for all intents and purposes, is a Republican, and that guy, who's a Republican, who's not going to vote against impeachment, and now all of these Democrats are leaving. So the DCCC is going to bring these guys onto their staff for a period of time until they can be deposited into a campaign that better represents their values. Their values. They always talk about their values. I don't know what their values are, if I'm being honest. To me, that doesn't really have any meaning.
It sounds like these people are blue no matter who fall in line with Democrat, and now, our guy's not a Democrat, we gotta go.
But if the guy remained a Democrat but voted,
that's fine, because he's a Democrat.
He's a Democrat.
So
I wager to you that as long as he was voting, he could have voted however he voted and stayed a Democrat. They would have been perfectly okay with staying in his staff. The catch here is it's possible that he's running in a district where he's losing support one way or the other. Meaning, impeachment is like a Brexit issue. Like where you have fault lines, where you have people who are like lefties or people who are Democrats who are like, you must impeach. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. By the same token, he has Republicans who are like, you better not impeach. In which case, he gets caught in this kind of weird quagmire where he's losing it from both ways. So his attempt at trying to stem this is to become a Republican. The catch here is there's an open seat now for that district where the Democratic Party is going to be trying to run against him.
And where is this guy located?
This guy is in
New Jersey. I see it.
Yeah, New Jersey. So he played the Democratic Party for suckers. Thanks for letting me get in, buddies. But now I'm a Republican.
Bye, bitches.
Well, the catch becomes, can he hold that seat in the next election? And the next thing becomes also, the DCCC chose this guy. It chose that guy. So what are one of the patron appreciation issues that are afoot?
So
you're supposed to have this stuff.
Kay Arnold, no, I was supposed to be sleeping, being lazy. Kay Arnold says, do you remember when Trump hosted Saturday Night Live 1 year before he won the election? No one ever brings it up, on TV at least. There's a clip on YouTube called Saturday Neoliberalism, where the narrator breaks down the history of neoliberalism, highlights clips from the episode, as well as the history of Saturday Night Live. I'd like to hear this discussed. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that.
That's from Kay Arnold. Could you write that down so we can look that one up?
Yeah.
You've talked about this one already before, but Jazzy Jade has said you have a lot on your plate for this week. If you get to it, what do you think of this comment from Jeremy Corbyn on a leaked Brexit report concerning the Northern Ireland border?
What was the report?
Did you see that?
I didn't see the leaked report. I mean, look, Northern Ireland, they're putting a border across the Irish Sea. So basically, that border...
This is the tweet.
Brexit report.
Own government that exposes the falsehoods that Boris Johnson has been putting forward.
Jeremy Corbyn has just revealed a leaked government report that shows Boris Johnson has been misleading the public about Brexit.
Get Brexit done the Tory slogan at the heart of the election campaign says, is a fraud on the British people. Johnson has said definitively, and I quote, there will be no checks between Northern Ireland and...
Okay, I have seen this part. Yeah, so I have seen this. Basically, Bojo is lying. I mean, there's going to be a border down the Irish Sea. There will be checks. And ultimately, he's arguing this notion of get Brexit done. I asked Galloway, you heard this. I called into Galloway. And I asked him, I said, what about Northern Ireland? Right? I mean, nobody really brings it up.
Don't you worry about
Northern Ireland. Worry about Northern Ireland. Because what he knows is what I know. That Northern Ireland, just based on momentum, is going to end up back in the orbit of reunifying. I even was speaking to one of the gentlemen online who was, I think he was in the UK, and I brought up Northern Ireland also. I'm like, what happens in Northern Ireland? He's just put a border down the Irish Sea. And Northern Ireland is going to be regulatory orbit of Republic of Ireland. In perpetuity. This fig leaf of a board that's supposed to look after stuff. And by the way, we don't even know if that's going to be the same Brexit deal. Bojo may take this and say, yeah, I'm scrapping this deal. We're going to get another better deal now that I had a parliament that can influence my will. But if he stays with the same Brexit deal, and if there's a border down the Irish Sea, and yes, there will be checks at some point. There has to be, right? I mean, you have items that are going from Ireland into the UK, and from the UK into Ireland, and these items have different regulatory arrangements. Meaning, let's say, for example, if you and I have a household, and our household is vegetarian, and our kid is bringing a friend over, he's bringing food over, do we check the food to make sure there's no meat in it because we don't want our kid having meat? Meaning, from our regulatory alignment, this is illegal. Well, the same thing is true for the UK and for Europe. There are certain things that the UK may accept. It says, great, these are legal, but these items are not. And because our laws are now different from the standpoint of regulations, we have to check that. It's just a natural extension of, a border. The EU cannot allow items to go into to Europe that are against their policies.
Right.
It's just, it's just natural as natural to be. But that may also be true going the opposite way. And so you end up with checks. I mean, it evolves from it. Bojo, I kept saying, I didn't understand why people were accepting what Bojo was saying. NHS also. The NHS, look, I know some people, when Galloway said, oh, the NHS has been privatized for years, for decades, that's true, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it won't get worse under Bojo. Let's not put that or skate on that. It's a big deal. Like, I don't believe Bojo. You shouldn't believe him. The guy is a flagrant liar.
Yeah, Paul says Bojo is going to scrap the middle class. He's the second coming of the plague.
Yes, he is. Galloway, these guys were trying to say, oh, he's a liberal and he's this and he's that. They're trying to make it worse. They're trying to make it not as bad as people think it's going to be. It is as bad as you think it's going to be. Yeah. I'm sorry. Corbyn, this election was about Brexit, but he wasn't wrong about the NHS being sold off. You have, when Trump told Theresa May, everything's on the table. And he looked at her with a lusty grin. Oh, everything is on the table. Everything. Now, he was talking about the NHS. He was also talking about, drug policy, the works. The UK is going to be a submissive government once it comes out of the European Union. Because it's going to be a submissive government when it comes out of the European Union, well, you're going to have corporations in the U.S. that is going to look at this as an opportunity to take advantage. And they will take advantage. From the standpoint of Northern Ireland, you heard Galloway, don't worry about Northern Ireland. His perspective is, if Ireland reunifies, so what? Yeah. Is that the perspective of the other Brits who are in the country? And is that something that Boris will come out and say? Yes, I'm okay with the reunification of Ireland. I don't care. And if he does not come out and say that, then she's right. He's being dishonest because his policies will most likely end up with the reunification of Northern Ireland. At least that's my, that's my...
Can you pull up Patreon, please? So that I can...
That's my look on it.
People were responding to what you were saying today. While you're pulling that up, I have another one from Maggie Smith. Mm-hmm. Maggie Smith says, do you think it's possible that the impeachment in the Senate is just a way to get Sanders and Warren out of the way?
Not anymore.
I'm suspicious since they don't use something that was actually impeachable. Is it a test run to see how gullible we are? I have friends that, after watching MSNBC, amazingly seem to
they go along
channeling
with it.
Rachel Maddow.
Yeah. They're like 90% on board for impeachment. Democrats,
Right.
just random Democrats.
So do you think it's...
But no, I don't think. Nancy Pelosi was kicked and screaming into this position. And ultimately, you had people who were, let's say, on board for impeachment because it seems like this aspect of a angry left was on board for it. But Nancy Pelosi seemed like she was dragged to the position. So it doesn't seem like this was all planned in this kind of grand strategy, if that makes sense.
Okay.
By the same token, the Republican Party seems to be going to do away with this pretty quickly. I mean, Mitch McConnell is like, the president's not going to be impeached. And they're going to just dispense with this. So it's not going to be keeping these guys...
That's it. No, don't click off of it. This is what I want.
Keeping these guys in Congress forever.
All right, so we're going to move on to some of the comments because you guys that are watching have been posting to the Patreon platform in response to what he's been saying. So we do want to address these before the end of the day. So
people are going to disagree with my Chinky video.
Ty Henry, a.k.a. Sports Droppings, says, how about Cory Booker getting accolades for calling out the debate qualification process when Tulsi was vilified for it?
Yeah, I mean, they hate Tulsi. She's the villain of the story for these guys. And so her calling out the debate saying it's arbitrary, it's unfair, and she was more specific when she was calling it out. Her point was, you have these polls, and these things rarely come out, and when they do come out, it's like you guys have a certain degree of control over these things. They use one poll, the Boston, I give you an example, Boston Suffolk, as opposed to USA Today Suffolk. Now, the USA Today Suffolk is accepted. The Boston Suffolk would show that Tulsi Gabbard had enough support. I think she had like 4 or 5% that would have gotten her in the debate. Not accepted. Same polling agency. The only difference is that people were paying for it, and they used that as an exclusion to keep her out.
Isn't gonna work.
So Tulsi's thing was, this thing is a rigged process, just like you guys, and she went nuclear, like cheated Sanders. She even went there. Cory Booker, who was begging. He has more billionaires supporting him, if I'm not mistaken, than anybody else on that stage. And outright begging people on the debate stage to support him, to get him on stage. Now, Booker doesn't have support, clearly. And if all of these people screaming about, oh, we need more people of color on stage, you have Elizabeth Warren.
She's not
Native American.
Color. I'm actually offended that you...
Native American. Well, look,
she is.
My grandfather is a Native American, a real one. And as such, just like kind of black folks saying the N-word, I can make these jokes because I am clear on this.
Okay.
Yeah, I can make those jokes.
Okay, let's move on to what the next
I can make those jokes.
Say.
My point is, if black people wanted a black person on stage, they would have voted for a black person. And I would imagine that if you would have ascribed Bernie Sanders' quantities onto a black person or given him a vagina, I would have voted for that person too.
Yeah.
So this is not an issue of color. This is an issue of ideology, and people are supporting policies that are in their ideological interests or who they think can be Trump.
Well, what Ty Henry said was the difference between how people are treating Cory Booker.
Yeah,
and
she's an enemy.
Yeah.
She's not considered...
Tulsi.
Yeah, she's not considered on the in crowd. Cory Booker is accepted because Cory Booker will go along with these issues of war and everything else. And for the most part, Cory Booker has also some billionaires backing him. If Cory Booker has real support, then Cory Booker should marshal that support to get on the debate stage. And begging the debate moderators to let you in doesn't seem to be the way to do it. And this isn't like Gabbard's campaign. Cory Booker had every wish that a campaign could want in the world. And, including cash.
And still didn't cut him.
Still couldn't cut it. Gabbard had to do this from scratch with a party that hated her guts. And so she was ostracized from the party and everything else.
Yeah.
Her issue was, look, you have polling that would allow me to get in. But you guys have put constraints on the agencies that are doing the polling, even though there are other A+ polling agencies that show me with enough support. Why don't you pull the constraints off? Well, Tom Perez's point was, I'm not pulling it off of you. I'm not pulling it off of anybody else. You guys can go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Catch is Bloomberg. Is Bloomberg going to get on the debate stage? Should he? I mean, the answer is no. I mean, he's not going to have support. He's just spending $100 million. Yeah. Do you know how much money he spent?
Cash fools everything around me.
You know how much money he spent?
Money. Millions.
Give me a number. Give me a guess.
I don't know. $27 million.
Nope.
What is it?
$100 million. And he's just been in the race for like a few weeks. Guess how much the other billionaire in the race, not to be undone. It's like a big dick contest.
$127 million.
Tom Steyer, no. Tom Steyer is a lesser billionaire. In fact, Tom Steyer probably wouldn't even be considered a billionaire by Bloomberg standards. But Steyer spends $87 million.
Okay, we're not on the billionaires tonight.
Oh, I'm just telling you how much they spent.
They're not going to be on the debate stage.
Do you know? Well, we don't know that. We don't know that.
I'm wishful thinking. I got more. I'm ready.
Well, Tom Steyer is on the debate stage, as far as I know.
I'm on my roll.
Oh, go for it.
All right, we have a super chat from Zycan. Thank you, Zycan. Says, JT, I like your articulate, insightful, and nuanced comments. A little wordy, still good info. Helps to link to the applied behavioral science dots.
What behavioral science documents?
I'm not sure. DOTS dots. Thank you, Bernard. Says that sneeze was awesome. All right, so if you are enjoying the show, give it a thumbs up because we only have 150 people here and we're not going to be here for that much longer. But let's see if we can get to like 200. If you give it a thumbs up, it helps YouTube's funky little algorithm let people know that we are live and more people join the show. There's another one from...
To quickly intervene, YouTube has changed their algorithm to put up regular sources like CNN, MSNBC, and to downplay independent media sources. Like, so it's like when we're looking at this, like, all right, the numbers are going up, but the numbers would have went up higher had the algorithm not changed.
Yeah.
Their algorithm has literally changed in order to boost up. So, and you can see it in your own things. When you're looking at YouTube and CNN will come up, MSNBC will come up, all of these sources will come up. None of these things are things that I necessarily attach to. I mean, every so often I might go to it if I want to joke one of the videos, but...
That's not what comes up on my feed. But
really?
I feel you. I don't have enough political stuff besides your show to warrant that.
All right.
All right, so another comment on the Patreon platform from Ty Henry. Again, he says, come on, Jamal, the attack point on Cenk had to do with male sexuality and self-deprecating humor. It was bad faith. And if there was a problem with the network's name for the Sanders campaign, then his advisor should have been better in prevailing upon Bernie not to endorse in the first place. The biggest problem is the Bernie bro trope has him so spooked that he is petrified to criticize or fight back against female opponents who weaponize gender.
Yes.
See Hillary and Warren supporters.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, honestly, I agree with that. Especially, he wants, but I don't think that's insane. So 2 points. I didn't give any corner to the Bernie bro stuff. Like, so when she made this joke about Cenk sucking off a horse, where she was saying, where Cenk was making a point about,
I saw that one.
You should be able to suck off a horse.
He was saying that bestiality should be allowed if the animal is getting pleasured.
Right. Now, I thought that was funny. Now, that's something I think that I would say that you would be looking at me like, oh God, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was looking at him in the exact same way. What the fuck are you talking about?
She
had the look on Anna's face was
kept
like,
saying, wow,
yeah, she was horrified. She would have said similar to the way you would have responded. He was joking. And I'm sorry, men may find things funny that women don't, and that's fine. But you can't attack the guy for it.
I don't know this is necessarily a man versus
I do. Sometimes woman. I do. Because there are jokes that men may make that women may
not. Bella says
there may be jokes that men make.
It was gross.
Exactly. That's my point.
Do any men think that this comment was gross?
I think it was funny. There may be some men that think it's gross. It may run a spectrum, but clearly he was joking.
Maybe.
Wait. Can we at least admit that clearly?
I don't know if he was joking or not.
He was joking. I don't think Cenk Uygur was talking about, let's have people sucking off horses.
Okay, but I think one thing is...
And they attacked him on multiple points.
Okay.
They attacked him from the standpoint of the Bernie bro thing.
Video. Let me say my thing about the video.
Well, and the second point, they brought up in New York Times. Meaning they hit him in the New York Times and the LA Times. And the stuff that they were bringing up was stuff that happened like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And some of the stuff, the only thing that I give credence to is the Holocaust denial. I mean, the genocide denial. Everything else was nonsense.
Wait, I want to talk about the horse thing.
Really. Wait. I just want to make a point to Ty Henry. I didn't give any credence, Ty Henry, to any of the BS stuff that I thought. I mean, in the video that I did for Jake, I was very specific in saying all of this other stuff is nonsense. And whatever you want to think of Jake, He's not the person that these people are trying to make him look like. I even went into explaining that oftentimes political campaigns, especially campaigns that are associated with the DNC, have media arms. They have people in media who could write these stories to attack your particular political opponents. They're hit pieces. So this particular woman who he's running against, who's associated with him, had 2 stories come out attacking Sanders, by the way, for essentially endorsing Cenk. But in that, they're essentially slandering Cenk, calling him pro-bestiality. I mean, to put it in perspective. And then she comes out and says, this guy who is sexist, racist, genocide denier, etc. This guy's not progressive. Now, Bernie looks at this and gets spooked, and he's like, okay, fuck this. Now, the thing is, all of this other stuff was nonsense. The issue is the genocide denial. And so his point is, look, if they had an issue with that, they should have said something about that. But the problem is, I don't think people look at TYT as genocide denial. I think they look at TYT as just a progressive network or a lefty network. When you look at TYT, I don't think people look at that and say, oh God, these guys are, denying genocide with, this network was responsible for it. I look at it and say that because I'm a history, I dive into history on this stuff, and I've been horrified by this for several years now, that they are able to keep this name. But I don't know if Sanders right off the bat jumped off and thought to himself, this name is problematic, and I don't necessarily want to be entirely associated with somebody that's associated with that name. Now, I said, even in that video, that I don't know what's right. I don't know the answer. I think you and I were talking about it, and I said the same thing. I don't know what's right on this. Is it right for Sanders in this case to say, look, I endorse this guy, and I'm going to back my ally in this, come hell or high water, let's ride till the wheels fall off? Or is it more right to say, people who support me will forgive me for backing out of this particular endorsement, as opposed to having some attack point on me for somebody who's denying potentially genocide with the name of the network? I don't know if there's credence to this to have any level of blunt force as a threat. By the same token, it's possible that you say, okay, well, I just don't want to deal with the threat in the first place.
I don't even want to go there.
Now, the catch becomes what's right? What's more right? Is it more right to say, fuck it, I'm sticking with this guy regardless of any potential attacks? Or is it more right to back out of it with the goal, I'm trying to be president, and this is not a risk I want to take on? I don't know what's right. I think I even said it in the video. So, Ty Henry, I feel you. The attacks were, most of those attacks were BS. I think I said as much. It's that last genocide denial one that becomes a little bit touchy.
It has some truth to it, so it kind of digs.
And also, by the way, they just now pushed through a bill in the House and in the Senate recognizing the Armenian genocide. Understand what I mean? The purveyors of the Armenian genocide were the Young Turks. Yeah, that's my point. If this was some random year or whatever, okay, fair enough. But in this very specific year, they are focusing on the issues with Turkey, and these things are coming up from the standpoint of politics. And that woman specifically used the term genocide denier, which means that she is focused in that particular area. I don't care about all threats. I just care about the threats that have some legs to them. Yeah, and in this case, I think this one may have legs.
Okay, all right. I don't want to say... Wait, that's not the one. I want to read the one below that because that's the bottom one. Maggie Smith, I'm not going to say anything on the Cenk one because you've gone so far off and I'm over my comment. But Proud Foots, thank you. He gave one of those little dancing super chat things.
Oh.
That's the first time I saw those. Maggie Smith says, what do you think about Greece intervention in Libya? Now Turkey has sent ships and this is not in coordination with Greece. Both are NATO members. Is this another sign of NATO falling apart?
It's hard to say. I mean, NATO doesn't have a purpose right now. I mean, NATO is literally living off of the Soviet Union, an institution, a political system that broke down, 40 years ago? I mean, we're talking about the 80s, so 30-some years ago? I don't know what NATO's point is. Not in a literal sense. And I suspect NATO doesn't know its point either. And so you have this thing where Trump is running around the world attacking NATO members, be it Turkey, talking about putting sanctions on Turkey, has a situation in Syria where Turkey, Russia, all of these countries are involved in this process, even from the standpoint of Ukraine and the way that we're trying to expand NATO to the borders of Ukraine. This is asking for trouble on this. Every country that NATO expands to has a military contract that if they are attacked, or if any other country is attacked, even Estonia, that every last country involved will kick in gear into the process and attack
Right.
Russia. Now, understand what this means. This means that for every move that NATO makes, that is a country that Russia can no longer engage.
Mm-hmm.
And every move that it makes,
the more that they expand.
right. So you have this expansion around the borders where Russia is not dealing with an independent state, it's dealing with a super state. So NATO is essentially functioning as one joint military body, as if it was one country in and of itself, and they are moving and surrounding the borders of Russia. They're also using weapons now that break the INF treaty. Well, at this point, Trump has pulled out, but now the U.S. are using weapons that are flagrantly breaching the treaty. Whether that means NATO is falling apart, that's a hard thing to know. I mean, ultimately, you might have countries that pull out of NATO, but whether it's falling apart, that's somewhat different. I mean, countries may have their squabbles, but I get the strong feeling that the U.S. and many of the imperialist powers are in no way going to allow that body to crumble. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I mean, what's his name? One caveat. Russia, right? I mean, Macron, and if European powers have decided to make this thing of, okay, we're going to try to meet some kind of common ground with Russia. I mean, Germany has their pipeline. That makes sense. Germany and Russia are rather close to one another. And you have Trump, who's gallivanting around the world to try to, A, get these countries to pay more, but also trying to stop technology or technological developments from like China and from Russia, from those various countries. Meaning Turkey is buying weapons from Russia now.
Yeah.
Well, that's a problem. I mean, this guy's supposed to be a NATO nation. How are they buying weapons from Russia? India is buying weapons from Russia now. It just so happens that the Russian weapons are supposedly just as good, if not better, and cheaper. And so
I was going to say, it's all about the
Benjamins.
Bottom line.
The bottom line. So whether this is a break up Russia, I don't know. I would say we are in a weird, precarious spot. And because of all of this Russian nonsense, you know, Cenk Uygur, if I'm not mistaken, has said that Russia thing was a hoax now. He said it was fake. Even he has come up because of the IG report. The IG report was so damning in regards to what the FBI was doing in order to come up with the reasons, in order to follow Carter Page and all this other stuff, that it was just flagrant.
Yeah.
Like it was a conspiracy theory of sorts.
All right, and so in line with talking about Cenk really quick before we move on, Jay Wood, thank you for the super chat. Jay Wood says, the genocide denial was corrected decades ago, and it comes from him growing up.
Yes.
Comes from him growing up Turkish, not unlike Tulsi's stance on homosexuality.
Yes, agreed.
When she was a child.
No, I agree. I mentioned that. I didn't hide the ball.
Okay.
Turkey was furious at this proclamation. Turkey doesn't accept that the Holocaust took place. Cenk Uygur is Turkish. His opinion in this case is not insane that he won't deviate from the norm in this case.
Yeah.
It's like saying we got hit on 9/11, and then somebody saying it's a hoax abroad, and you don't necessarily want to believe right off the bat that your government or George Bush would have done something like this. You push back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for him, from his standpoint, this notion of an Armenian genocide, they push back on this notion of calling it a genocide. He himself also pushed back on it. He got shamed for this, and he pulled back on this, saying, okay, fair enough, it was a genocide, and he corrected the record. Now, she's attacking him on that very specific thing, as if he had never corrected the record. My only issue is not so much that he didn't correct the record, it's more so that to show his name. Yes. That's all. I mean,
all right, real quick, last one before we move
from Cenk.
Yeah, from Janky Cenk. Majin Bull, thank you for the super chat. Majin Bull says, JD, Jimmy Dores, Cenk interview hurts. It's one thing to not do videos on them. It's another to say he disavows Russiagate and not even ask about Tulsi smears or Cenk compromising his integrity to coddle Warren.
That's the interview. Dore had an interview with Cenk Uygur. So that must have been the interview where he says, okay, the Russiagate stuff was nonsense.
Yeah, you didn't see the Jimmy Dore interview.
I have to be honest, I haven't watched any other channels in a very long time.
Okay, write that down.
I usually do just news channels. I would say this.
Jimmy Dore's news, isn't he?
Well, it's comedy-ish news. It's comedy/news. So that makes a really good point. Yes, Dore. It's difficult to ask questions of people who you relate to. he should have asked the Medicare for All question. That should have came up. How are you going to support Warren when she was not really supporting Medicare for All? How are you boosting her at a time when you knew she was going to take money after she got out of the primary? Why are you pretending that there are two choices in this race? That type of stuff. I would, those type of questions I definitely think you can pry into. And if it was my interview, I think I would have wanted to know that also, especially if the audience member would have been like, ask him about Warren. Yeah, what about Warren? Tilting yourself, because he had to twist himself to do that. It was a funny point where when Warren came out with her Medicare for All plan, and it was this 3-year transition, and Uyghur was standing there like somebody hit him in the stomach. He says, like she wasn't serious. And I'm laughing like, now you get it. She was never serious. And was it one of those things where he actually believed her? I mean, if you're standing there looking like somebody stole your lunch money, it didn't seem like you were being all that politically craven. He might have actually believed her when she was saying Medicare for All, which, I'm sorry, I don't know why.
Can you check Streamlabs really quick before we do this one? I have to read Jay Scott's comment out loud because it's hilarious. Jay Scott said, y'all look like extras on an Outkast and Badu video. Cardinal said somebody going on and on and on and on. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's funny.
That's what happens when you get woken up out your sleep and you're like, I gotta go, but my hair.
I was like,
hair, man.
I was like, put a do on it. Let's do it. Burnman23, consolation for your F tier designation from PV called you blander than David Blandman. Speaking of Zionist thoughts on Trump's executive order, Israel taking over half of our voting machines, an Israeli spy saying Epstein was honey trapping for them. Wow, I didn't hear about that. I didn't hear about that one. I didn't know that Israel was taking over a half of voting machines. I didn't know. And PV, I gotta be honest, I don't.
Somebody said some Gardner was joking saying that I wasn't on the show because I was out Christmas shopping for PV or something.
I don't know why this kid, I gotta be honest, I don't know how this kid, I mean, everybody has a wavelength. And there will be some people who are looking for a dumbed down version of news that I suppose can go that wavelength. But, to each their own. I don't know who would get news from a child. Bless you.
Another child? Ugh.
No, but these aren't kids. These are adults.
No, I'm just joking. Are the other ones old?
Yeah, these are old.
Okay. All right. So there was one more on the Patreon platform about Brexit, and then I'm going to bed. Well, not to bed, but...
I agree that the Corbyn... All right.
Let me read it.
Go for it.
I like reading. So Fred Aggs, he's on now. So Fred Aggs, we are getting to your comment now. Don't forget, if you enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up while you're watching. But Fred Aggs says, on the Brexit referendum, I agree with you that Corbyn lacked the leadership required to move the party on Brexit.
Yeah.
I think Corbyn was doomed from the start, as there were probably Blairites who wanted Corbyn out.
Yes.
And Brexit was the best vehicle to do so and supported Boris. Do you think Corbyn could have eliminated the Blairites when he received his mandate? Where do you see the Blairites taking the Labour Party?
That's fucking fascinating, right? Because somebody made this point. I think when I was talking to Gordon made the point that he should have gotten rid of all the Blairites. He should have deselected them. And it's like, oh, dude, could you do that? Like, could you get away with that? Like, think of what the media would have said if he would have done that. But the point is, well, he just lost.
Yeah.
And, it's like, think of what the media is saying now. And it's very possible that those Blairites whispering in his ear about this Remain stuff is the thing that tanked him. Like, he was lost from the start. Now, if he was a stronger leader, is it possible to say, I am doing this because the public commissioned me to do it, and you other Remainers need to sit the fuck down? And if not, you will be replaced. Is it really just a strength thing? I don't know if he could have gotten away with replacing of the Blairites. Maybe. I would say this. It's unclear on where the party goes. Just because Corbyn lost doesn't necessarily mean that the people who are in the party who supported his policies have gone anywhere.
Right.
Those people are still there. The moderates and the right-wing Blairites in the party will say that it's all Corbyn's fault. He went too far to the left. They would use this as his attacking point. All that stuff. None of it is true. All of it boils down to Brexit. It boils down to Brexit. And they thought Corbyn was weak, and they didn't particularly like Corbyn, but ultimately this boiled down to You are ignoring the will of the public from the referendum, and on this issue, you're not even taking a position.
Yeah.
So I agree. Whether he could get away with getting rid of the Blairites, I have no idea. And right now, they're going to have a leadership race, so it's unclear on who takes power in that leadership race. And I got to be honest, I have no idea who's up for contention in this. I mean, McDonald said he's not going to stand. Starmer may, but he's part of the tainted organization at this point. And there was another one, Jess Phillips, who was laughing heartily initially when they came on for the interview, then all of a sudden hit the depths of depression when she was talking about it. She was like, everybody's telling me I need to run for the leader. So maybe her, but I don't know who's going to run. So it's hard to know whether or not they even take power, let alone move the party in a direction. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, there's no way to answer that because I have no idea who's going to win.
Yeah.
But from the standpoint of the Blairites, yes, they had it in for him. Whether or not they knew in advance that the Remain position was going to tank his campaign and create this kind of hobbling effect, I don't know. Are they broken up by it? No. Nancy Pelosi may come out and weep tears of blood if Trump wins again in 2020, but I guarantee you behind the scenes she's chest thumping and she's glad handing with Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
So, third way Democrats, just like Blairites, who would rather the Republican or the conservative win as opposed to the Democrat winning. And by the way, just to make a point, Clinton, right-wing Democrat, lost. Gore, right-wing Democrat, lost. John Kerry, right-wing Democrat, lost. All of these centrist politicians lost. Hillary Clinton lost to a reality show host and still doesn't shut the fuck up. And so now we're being told that Corbyn, because he lost, that all of a sudden, oh God, lefties can't be trusted in order to run in these elections. First, we don't have a Brexit in our country.
Yeah.
Nor do we have a queen. It's not the same. We don't even have a parliamentary system in our country. We elect our presidents directly. It's not the same. So don't be gaslit into believing such. Anybody else?
No more super chats.
Go for it.
No, I said no more super chats. Gardner's, no, I don't know what they're talking about. Zox says the people in power will always be dividers. You don't pat somebody on the back for
supportive. I'll be supportive. It's like those women that are giving giving birth and their husbands are back there like, it's like just rub her back, and she looks at him. You did this to me. You remember those scenes?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you did this to me.
I feel like you'd be like jokey. Like,
I would.
When I go into labor, like if we had a kid.
I'd be like, oh, look at her vagina.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
That's what you do, like when we go to doctor's appointments now, anyway.
It's like I can see her spinal column or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look, that joke. If I was running for office, they would say he made jokes about seeing his wife's
so wait, this is what I was gonna
spinal column through her vagina at a doctor's visit.
That's not what happened. I was at the doctor's office, and it was a GYN appointment, and Jamal is sitting on the other side of the room, across from where everything is happening, and he goes, "I could see your tonsils," and my doctor and the nurse were actually like. And I'm like, what the hell? Do you believe he could see my toes? Like, what are y'all looking at?
They didn't know.
It was reflexive.
They didn't know. They weren't sure.
But no.
It was like, maybe he's not lying. Maybe.
What I was going to say about, but they were probably like, what the fuck is he looking at that he thinks looks like a tonsil?
Well, the thing is, but see, if I ran for office, this moment will be used against me.
This is what I was going to say.
This moment will be used against me.
Sometimes the joke, especially ones that are a little controversial, sensitive to some people, come off better based on the person.
Yes.
If we already don't like Janky Jank and he makes a comment like that, it hits that much harder and it's that more disgusting than like if you were to say, like make a joke about BCL, I'd just be like, oh, that's messed up.
The issue is the Democratic Party hates him. Don't misunderstand me. Jank used to yell at Democrats and Republicans when he was at MSNBC. He did the same thing on his other network. They act like he was running hand in hand with a racist on his show. Like some of the stuff was just slanderous and wrong. Like, for example, he had David Duke on his show, and he ridiculed David Duke the entire show. The person in the New York Times said, and he brings him on the thing, and blah, blah. It's like, what are you talking about? You're just lying on the guy. Like, it's not about like and dislike. In this case, they're just flagrantly lying. And the other case where they mentioned the joke about the bestiality, they were just lying. Anybody who's looking at that can say, the guy's joking.
Well,
I don't like the joke.
There were actually a couple of people in the super chat when we were talking about this that they don't believe that Cenk is joking. That he has made that argument many times over the years.
I don't think he's okay. Fair enough. I mean, look, it's a weird argument. I don't care if an argument if a farmer sucks off his horse. Do I need to really get involved in whether or not there should be a law against that? Now, I think we have laws against that, but I don't want to be dragged into a conversation while I'm even having this conversation. And for him to go on his network and show and say this, I have to believe he was joking. I don't believe that he thought strongly that, no, man, owners should be able to suck off their cows unless those, as long as those things are happy. It's possible, maybe, but I give him the benefit of the doubt in saying I think he's joking. And his argument, I think, there was like bestiality should be kind of like we do jaywalking, where we should give a pass to. Anna was looking at him horrified by that conversation. And it's the conversation itself, I think, is somewhat of the problem. And him taking that cadence like, yeah, you should be able to suck off a horse. Anna's response to this was perfect, because she was like, some women who are raped also have an orgasm.
Right.
Meaning the horse, just because the horse
because I am responding to being raped or taken advantage of, doesn't necessarily mean that I liked it. See, Nathan says, it's true, Jamal. I've heard many women who don't think he was joking.
This is why I say this is the difference between how men and women joke. When Trump said, grab him by the pussy thing. Now, men who were sitting by their wives, consternated, they were like, oh, that bastard, how dare he? How dare he?
But you know what? That didn't make me feel any kind of way. I was like, oh, that just sounds like something people would say. But they played that up like nobody's business. If you were in a locker room, I played chess for God knows how long. And I gotta be honest, when we played chess, it was worse. It was far worse than that. Maggie Smith says, let it go. You're beating a dead horse.
Nice. Pun. I like that. I like that.
All right, let's move on though.
Let's move on. I just don't. I don't buy that part, and I defend the guy on all of this other stuff. Like when I did my video, I defended him on all of this because I thought this was bogus. I mean, come on, you're just slandering the guy, and you're using all of these identitarian stuff in order to hit him with. It was just the genocide stuff. I gotta be honest. When I do my show, but I endorsed him for that office. So I had no hesitation with the issue at all.
Did you come out and do an endorsement video?
Yes.
Oh, I got to see that.
Yeah. I thought he would make a better person for the office. You know whose seat he's running for? Katie Hill's.
Yeah. All right. It's 8:45.
Was that the last one?
I think we're done, son.
All right. Mrs. Thomas comes in to help out.
This is going to be my last Contributor Appreciation Show until 2020. Can I just go ahead and put that out there?
Right here. He's serious, dude. He isn't pro-bestiality, but he would decriminalize it. God, I hope that's not a fucking policy that he pushes for.
Well, somebody earlier said that he does kind of the same thing, but he wouldn't put a bill out for it or something like that.
I mean, I couldn't believe, I would be flabbergasted if Uyghur comes out and says, all right,
that word.
I'm going to decriminalize fucking goats. Only, however, if the goat enjoys
why
it.
Though, man?
Right. It's like, why are we having this conversation? I think that's the weird part about that conversation. That's why it looks so bad when you listen to it. I look at it and say, okay, he's fucking joking. Women may look at it and say, oh my God, I'm horrified. Now,
Stop making it a sex thing. Stop making it a gender thing that all men and women,
I don't think all men and women agree to the same thing. I don't think it's an absolute. But I do think, on general terms, that there will be jokes that men would make that women would find unconscionable.
You should hear some of the jokes that I've heard women make.
I know, but we wouldn't necessarily find it unconscionable. Society looks at it and demurs at it. Like the pussy grabber thing, people flipped out over that. And I'm like, have they heard men in locker rooms? Have they heard men talk to each other? Like some of the shit that we say to each other, and men are acting as if, oh my God, I'm perturbed by saying that.
Upstate Raider says assaulting woman talk wasn't in any of my locker rooms. Creepy Jamal.
Grabbing by the pussy. Okay, fair enough. He's quote unquote grabbing women by the pussy.
Listen, I have 3 older brothers.
But you get my point.
And like historically, like one of the girls that kind of hangs out with all the guys and stuff like that. I've heard some pretty trashy shit come out of people's mouths, including something that, you know, sounds just like that. Would be considered
assault.
You're like,
look,
it's a little uncomfortable.
This is not a rah-rah Trump thing. It's more so just kind of an honesty thing.
Birdman23 asked me to tell you, write this down, to look up Microsoft Election Guard for Israel. That's the information. Microsoft Election Guard. Okay. That is Israel taking over the thing. Wait, before we go on,
we should have hand counted votes. I mean, Britain does their hand counts. Did you know that? Like, the way they do their votes is open to the public, it's transparent, it's hand counting. What they have is
We don't want transparency in voting. What the hell are you kidding?
I want transparency in voting, and if they're so concerned about the fucking Russians, they should also.
Doesn't want transparency in voting.
I mean,
give me a break.
When they do their exit polling, and then based on the exit polling, they come away with an assessment. This assessment has been pretty damn correct. I think the assessment's at 86 seats. It ended up being 80. Damn close. And then the exit totals at the point where the votes come in.
Yeah.
The society cares at the very least about a secure vote. And I'm asking, why don't we? Shouldn't we have a system just like that? Meaning transparent, out in the open, hand-counted votes. You can have your exit vote, and then you can have your last tally, but no voting machines. Voting machines should be off the table. That's my thought. I don't trust voting machines.
All right, Majin, really quick before we finish. Majin Bowl 17 says, Cenk hired a Warren surrogate without disclosing it.
Not surprised.
Luca, yes. Luca says, I used to share an office with all women. They engage in locker room talk too.
I know. I think
I have been in conversations. Women can have some nasty mouths.
But I guess this is my point where I'd say this feels like, it feels false. And that's why I look at this like the grab by the pussy thing. I don't, look, if Trump is trying to aggressively assault a woman, then clearly I'm not for that. If it's locker room talk where guys are talking shit to one another, then how can I hit him on this when I've been in situations of worse conversations?
This is where it gets problematic.
There's no honesty
because
women talk like this also. Men talk like this. They often don't talk like this together unless they're having sex.
Right, and then like not in public, and then when somebody brings up these crass conversations,
people are like,
when you are in the political eye, then it's like, oh my gosh, we thought this person was pristine and didn't use the word PUSSY, and
it's as if
now what do we do?
Person wasn't a person. I don't know why people think that people aren't people. I just don't. Yeah, I just don't. Do you honestly believe that anybody that you know politically, do you honestly believe that that person is, like, what do you think that person is? And do you honestly, how do you know? What are they when nobody's looking at who they are?
Right.
And they are amongst
especially when they think that they have the privacy to kind of joke around and say some things. There was a couple years ago, and I know you and I bring this up we have recently a few times.
The white kids,
right? Where there was some white kids that were in the story who were catching a lot of heat. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember all the details. But they had a video of them like sitting in the living room, and they were talking, and the stuff they were saying was just so
over the
like
top.
Ridiculously racist. And it was like you listen to them, and they're like, they gotta be joking.
They must be fucking
They
around.
gotta be joking.
Yeah.
But there have been some times, I think, in most people's lives where you're sitting at home with your husband and your wife, and you're joking, and you might say some racist shit. You might say some sexist shit. You might say, some stuff that I wouldn't say that in public. Jamal has had conversations where he's like, babe, you better not repeat this, but XYZ. Like, we'll joke about stuff.
That's just you.
You joke about stuff when you think that you have...
I don't affirm that at all. That's just you.
When you think that you're in private.
Yes, you do. I won't tell you secrets, though.
I don't...
I won't tell you secrets.
I don't joke about stuff. I don't joke.
You've just implicated
No,
yourself.
this was a rhetorical thing.
No. You were pretty specific. No, I just think people do this. I think this is a person thing.
Like you say, people are people.
People are people. And look, I don't think that everybody who jokes about racist shit is racist, nor do I think that everybody who jokes about sexist shit is sexist. And I think that can go both ways, with women being amongst themselves and men being amongst themselves and doing the same thing. When we play chess, some of the shit we say to each other is horrendous. And that's
a little gay,
chess.
too. It's a little gay.
Sometimes a little gay. But that's chess, right? And so I can imagine what takes place in football and locker rooms and basketball locker rooms, guys who are at bars, all that stuff. And I would say the same thing is probably true for women when they're in their own space talking about guys.
We watched that movie Blow was on the other night.
Glow's
and awesome. No, not Glow, Blow.
Oh, yeah.
Where they were joking in prison and somebody said something that the guy didn't like and he joked, he said, haha, see you in the showers. And I'm like, you just joked about raping another dude.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. A credible threat, mind you. A credible threat.
See you in the shower. It's like, whoa.
It's like, yeah, dog.
Bad things are happening here in real life. Let's.
There's a high propensity for this already. I don't necessarily need you to, thread me in this way. Yeah, people say some macabre shit sometimes. And the public always takes it in a way as if they're holier than thou. And that the person who uttered it is no longer a person. I don't think things are often that simplistic. That video came out to hit Trump and nobody cared. The left cared, meaning, people who were Democrats or whatever cared.
Yeah.
But real human beings who were looking for real things in the political space didn't care for something that they themselves probably trespassed over at some point.
Pensive TM says, are you planning on covering an impeachment rally tomorrow?
I didn't know there was an impeachment rally tomorrow. I got to be honest, a lot of this has been a circus to me. I've been following the impeachment hearing only insofar as big issues come up, like the Sonderland thing came up, and it's like, okay, this is, atrocious. Sonderland, they're giving Sonderland credit for something that Sonderland, for the most part, backed away from, and they're still running as if they got him. But I got to be honest, this impeachment thing makes my head hurt. I don't like it. I don't agree with it, nor is anything coming from it. So it becomes just like a why bother? Like, Democrats are trying to make this case, well, we did it because America needed it to be done. It's just the right thing to do. It's like, you didn't even impeach Bush. And Bush invaded a fucking country. So don't give me this, it just needed to be done stuff. It was a partisan attack. Rashid Tlaib even said herself, I am here to impeach this motherfucker. Mm-hmm. What's her name? The one that knocked Michael Tracy out the way. What did she say? Well, I'm here to impeach the president.
Yeah.
Get out of my way, young man. I guess my point is you had a lot of these guys who knew right off the bat what they wanted to do, and that was to get rid of Trump by hook or by crook. And it gives me qualms that they were able to use intelligence services in this way to undermine him just before he even got in office, and then after he got in office was able to run a conspiracy theory or have, if Mueller would have played along, they would have taken him out of that office. Do you know that? Like if Mueller would have came back and said, look, I think there's something here, whether there was something there or not, they would have been able to take Trump out of that office, and they would have said that he was working with the Russians in order to do X or to do Y. They gave Mueller the opportunity to do the job. Mueller just backed away from it.
Maggie Smith says her niece is going to an impeachment rally. They can't talk about politics together.
Oh, wow.
Birdman said, was that Maxine Waters?
Yes, Maxine Waters. That's her. Maxine Waters. We're here to impeach the president. She's like, get away, get out of my way, young man.
And he was like, oh.
And she said, oh. No. He fell back like Kermit, like you said, like the Kermit did the wrong thing. He's like, oh. He just falls back like a rag doll. Then he didn't sue her, but he was very angry. I was like, dude, you got to get over that, man. You can't have that woman push you around like that.
Najin says, at the time Rashid said that, there were already enough violations that should have justified impeachment.
And yet, they're only going after him for 2 violations.
Garden Gnome says it's worse than useless. It helps Trump.
Yeah, it's worse than useless. I mean, the 2 violations are, A, abuse of authority, something that, something that the Ukrainian advisor who Sondland supposedly contacted said did not take place. He goes so far as to say, Your Mance, I know these people, but these conversations, I have no idea what they're talking about. I've never had a conversation with Sondland. Sondland is the person who makes the quid pro quo connection between those two. I mean, the leaked document does it, so fair enough, the conversation, but actually Sondland is the one that supposedly gave a human component to it, Well, the guy who Sondland supposedly contacted said it didn't happen. It didn't happen. I mean, look, I don't like the President of the United States getting information on political opponents. But this is, in fact, what the DNC did when they were using Chalupa to try to get the Ukrainian embassy to release information to hurt Trump. And they just so happened to release that information to hurt Trump, meaning through Manafort. So, not to mention the court case that said they were doing that. So, when I'm saying that, it's not like, oh, whoa, that's something that didn't happen. That actually did happen. However, Trump shouldn't replicate that. And he's comically worse at doing that. And so he goes about it with this kind of, did he want them to do that investigation? Oh, fuck yes. Did he want them to do that entirely for corruption's sake? No, he did not. He wanted to hurt his opponent, Joe Biden. Whether that's impeachable, that's different. Now, you have an election that takes place next year. And Nancy Pelosi often didn't want to impeach George Bush. He didn't like the divisive quality of it. I mean, ultimately, you are yanking a president out of office against their will and against their public's will, depending on whether or not the public supports you. The public are not, it's 50-50, and whether or not they support this or not. His supporters clearly don't support it because they've been giving him money hand over fist. Yeah. And a president that failed across the board now gets to run on this notion of impeachment. They tried to impeach me. They didn't accept my authority in this office. They tried to get me on Russiagate, which was a conspiracy theory, and we have the IG report saying it. And depending on what John Durham says, oh my God, John Durham may drop a bombshell. We don't know. John Durham is running a criminal investigation into the origins of Russiagate. And if he finds something that is bombshell-esque, meaning that there was something going on from the standpoint of the other party involved in this scandal, oh, hell is going to break loose. So we don't know what's going to...
Trudy's on board with impeachment. She said it probably will help Trump, but it needs to be done. He's had a serious abuse of... Oh, shit. But he's had a serious abuse of authority, and the timeline proves his guilt. I've had 2 super chats.
If this helps him, Trudy, then why would you impeach him? Think about what you're saying for the moment. This is a political contest.
Is he guilty?
Well, it's a political contest. And if in your political contest you make the argument that I got to impeach him even though we may lose the election because we're going to impeach him, then should you impeach him? Like, this is the Cisco argument. Cisco blows up a ship or works to blow up a ship in order to pull the Romulans into the war. Now, how is Cisco... Is it right for Cisco to do this? Well, right and wrong don't apply because ultimately Cisco needs to win a war. And if Cisco loses that war, billions of people are going to die and fall under a certain rule. Right now, you have Trump running in an election. The Democratic Party is angry at Trump for something that they tried to do to Trump themselves. Trump just so happened to win the election. Trump, whatever the violations you want to say that he has, it's debatable of whether or not it's impeachable. That becomes a subjective argument that Congress makes. You've had a very partisan Congress that tried to take him out of office with a soft coup that the IG just said was a conspiracy theory. And Comey coming to account of, okay, we were wrong, the buck stops with me, et cetera, deceit and everything else within the FBI. On the secondary part, now you have Democrats who are running a partisan, what I would call witch hunt, in order to impeach Trump. Something that they're not going to be able to do because the House or the Senate is not going to approve it. And something that it seems like it may be hurting your own chances of winning in the 2020 election. In a political contest, is it right to do something political that you believe is right, even if it makes you lose in the end? When the best case scenario would be for him to just lose in the end by not going along with the impeachment. I feel you, Trudy, but I don't buy this. This is a party that flagrantly cheated my guy. Flagrantly decided not to impeach Bush for war crimes and is now being pushed, unfortunately, by elements of the left to go after Trump. Nancy Pelosi does something that is against her better judgment and decides to go for impeachment, something that she knows is not going to go anywhere in the Senate. The Democrats' plan in this has failed outright. They wanted to get enough Republican support where they thought, if we get enough Republicans, maybe we can pull the public over. Maybe we can force the Republicans to do... Nonsense. None of that happened. The Republicans were on board entirely. even in the House, and they will be on board Trump's side in the Senate. And so I feel you, Trudy, but if the outcome is worse, then why is it a good idea to do it?
Trudy said JT is like Noonien Soong, often wrong. Jay Scott says, talk about candidates taking the bait on union picket line debate. Mayo Pete and Biden open themselves to anti-union track records.
They do. I'm curious on whether or not they're going to end up at the debate tomorrow. Have you seen anything else on that? Well, the party, so Sanders, Warren, and some of these other people said, we're not going to cross the picket line. And saying they're not going to cross the picket line, the question becomes, well, how are you going to have a debate if your main people are not going to cross the picket line? So I was unclear on what happened. That was going to be one of those things I was going to investigate after the show.
Charles Ferrer says, for me, the only reason Dems don't deserve to lose is because I don't want to see H.A. Goodman be right.
Well, that's on two fronts. Clinton getting into the race and Democrats winning.
Kilo said, holy hell, H.A. is still alive?
He is. He's still alive.
And kicking.
And still, he's got an abusive man. I saw a video he did like a month or so ago. He was abusive. He was abusive to the party. So, look, H.A. could be right if Clinton get into the race and wins for the Democratic Party. And this, who said that they wanted the Democrats to win? Do they want the Democrats to win with Clinton? H.A. could be right in a few points.
Jay Scott, what the hell are you talking about? He's going back to justice for Jay. Oh, because you didn't talk about the union picket line debate?
What picket line debate?
Talk about candidates taking the bait on union picket line debate. Mayo Pete and Biden opened themselves to anti-union track records. He said, hashtag justice for Jay. I didn't get my file over.
Well, I'll say it this way. Sanders is always going to be ideologically from the standpoint of the picket line. Biden and Buttigieg both, like you said, has records, especially with McKinley. Postal work stuff was the thing I saw today dealing with Pete Buttigieg, saying that his company was working to hurt postal offices and those type of things, where Sanders was working to protect post offices and keep those things open. McKinley looks bad for Buttigieg. It looks bad because it looks like he's been working to cut jobs, kind of like Romney. They were calling him Pete Romney. Maybe not as bad as Romney, but definitely working in a capacity of cutting jobs. This stuff was fleshed out when it became known that he was working at an insurance company, and they were able to piece together what he was doing at that insurance company. He came out in a video where he was talking about duplication of the workforce, essentially putting these terms out that essentially mean we need to cut labor. We need to cut the fat. Biden, if I am not mistaken, had somebody in his campaign that was working against unions. I could be wrong on this, but if I'm not mistaken, that was the thing with Biden. If Biden and Buttigieg don't pull out of this, then yeah, it draws attention. But are these two going to be the only two on the debate stage? Everybody else had it. Even Yang had enough sense to say, yeah, I'm not crossing that. Fuck that. I am going to fight with the workers, and I'm not crossing the picket line. It's the left, man. The last thing you can do in the left is cross a picket line and go into a debate, and people know that you cross that picket line to get to the debate. They're going to frown strongly upon you to do that. So, yes, it brings up these two things if they show up. And I need to learn more about this because I need to know whether or not the candidates are still going to do the debate. What?
There's nothing on the paper.
There is stuff on the paper.
There's a B.
Yeah, Biden.
Okay.
And ABUS, abuse of power.
It's just a lot of scribbles.
That's scribbles to you because you don't understand my language.
It's like hieroglyphics.
Okay.
That looks like some pants with some little legs sticking out of it.
That is pants with some sticking out of it.
Looks like a doodle.
When I do my thinking, sometimes it helps to be engaged elsewhere. It's like a conduit, letting shit fall through. Just like a movie and stuff.
All right, we're good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
It's 9:06.
Yeah, not going to be up early in the morning.
Najin said B can be Biden or Bernie. Are you going to know what that's going to stand for later?
Yes. It's only relevant for now.
It could be Buttigieg.
No. You misunderstand. It's only relevant for now. It's the conversation I have now. Any notes that I have, anything that I need to write. Sometimes I have pages of stuff that I go through, like this, where I would have USMCA, Bojo, Corbyn, the autopsy, and look at this. These are
now those are actual notes. I can read that.
Documents where you can read. Look at all of these pages of things. But
and then sometimes, like, he'll just do a line and be like, "This is fucking fascinating."
Because what's important is what I'm saying, not what I'm doodling. That's all.
JT's High Ground says, I'm excited that you guys are moving to the DMV. Yeah, somebody in the DC, Maryland, Virginia. Somebody.
Oh, is that what that means? Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought I was like,
yeah, you gotta get hip to the logo. No, brother. The someone on Patreon asked, were we moving or were we gonna like carpool or commute or something? No, we're moving.
That hurts.
That's why I was joking, saying this is my last contributor appreciation for the year, because I've started packing and stuff because I'm not last minute. And I like to get a jump on things. And so, but I don't think it's going to be my last contributor appreciation for the year.
I'm looking forward to the new studio.
I am too. You guys are going
to... I do care. That's why I pulled you in, because I think it's a better contributor appreciation when you're here. It gives a difference and allows a back and forth. But...
yes, the new studio is going to be the bomb. Because we won't be squatting. Like
yeah,
right
it'll be
now
close.
at your mom's house.
Desk is a little weird.
Like a huge space to have like a full-on studio. So it's going to be...
yeah, it's going to be cool.
Badass.
And I'm going to have my Pac-Man machine. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that part. But, I mean, this doesn't have to be your last. I mean, ultimately, we're talking about like an hour and a half of your
It's never an hour and a half.
Ish.
You lie so easily.
Ish.
We'll see.
Ish has a fudge factor.
I said that, but then I was like, JT's High Ground says, I hope to get to meet you guys at a social hour. We'll do that.
Yeah. They have a lot of stoner parties up there.
Let us know of a good place to do that. Garden Gnome says your notes will be in the Smithsonian one day. I call bullshit.
It's like, he drew these pair of pants when he was talking about Trump or something. I mean, believe it or not, when I'm writing stuff, sometimes it does pertain to whatever's going on. There might be videos that are playing that an idea comes up that I want to keep track of, like on By Any Means Necessary today, trying to keep track of the tone of the conversation. And there are things that I may write that I may come back to later that I need to know, but oftentimes it's shorthand because I don't necessarily need to write the entire thing.
Romeo says new studio equals a new show. People might not like the new show. It's not going to be a new show.
We've had a studio that changed continuously when I was traveling. Times. Yeah, when I was traveling, every 2 weeks we were in a different location.
There was a new studio.
Yeah.
This one, you'll like it. It'll be better.
Yeah.
It'll be more comfortable. Yeah. So there'll be more flailing about for him to do.
I don't know about that.
Like, this is fucking amazing.
I don't know about that. I don't know if there's flailing.
And it's awesome because I won't be right up against the wall when he's flailing about at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Desk.
He's like, it's fucking amazing. And I'm like, and the dog's like jumping up at 2 o'clock in the morning. We won't have that anymore. So that will be fucking amazing. This will be fascinating.
Hopefully the sound doesn't carry. All right. I'm going to end this. Bernie might ask the Justice Department to investigate something, but not involve personal lawyer. Don't involve another head of state personal. Bernie would obey the law. I do think that's true. I do think Bernie Sanders would obey the law. Yes, I also think he would try to be above it. Like, you know, I think there's something to be said for an honest broker, especially from the way that we've been doing our politics, where it's just been this cutthroat party versus party type stuff. One of the people said at one point, they said, look, Sanders, he told you what he wanted when he dealt with you. You always knew where you stood with Sanders. And that was something that even Republicans appreciated in dealing with him. It wasn't this kind of partisan stuff. He just had priorities that he wanted to accomplish. I think he will be above it all, personally. I think Joe Biden gets you the same Obama-esque type administration with somebody who's not as bright, not as capable politically of maintaining it. But I think the difference is Sanders, beyond anybody else, has very clear ideological priorities that he wants to enact. And he wants to get in office to enact those things. Meaning, he's thirsty. He has a tenacity about him. And he's thirsty, yeah.
Mike
deeply
says, this studio arrangement makes you look as if you're looking down your nose at us.
I don't know why that takes place.
That's not why. That's not the studio. That's because Jamarl, when he gets all enraged and passionate about things, he has a tendency to talk like this and actually look down on people. So he'd be like,
That's not...
I don't understand.
I don't be looking down on people.
What the fuck is he doing right now?
I'm sitting upright. Sitting upright is not looking down on people. I'm just taller than you. That's all.
Pay attention to the next videos.
I'm 6'1", man.
He's like, I don't understand this. And I've been seeing this for years.
And to be honest, the camera may give an appearance as if I'm looking down.
Well, the new setup will be better. The camera will, well, you guys can't see, but it'll be a better setup.
The camera may be pointed downward, so if I look up, it makes it look like I'm looking down.
It'll be more in line.
Yeah. Well, I'll raise it a little bit so it's not like I'm looking down at my audience.
Majin Bull, I don't know how to pronounce this, so I apologize, but it says, Robbie Yeager reported Emma Vigeland's parent works at the same law firm as Robert Mueller, suspect. Congratulations on the new studio.
Well, the new studio is just a new place.
It's just our house.
Yeah, it's just
the room that he's going to be working in. So it's not a studio.
So we've lived in... So we gave up our house when we started traveling last year. And when we gave up our house, we lived here with my mom. She has a upstairs that nobody was using. So we lived here in the upstairs for the last, year. Now, it was maybe 6 or 7 months before
almost 2 years.
Yeah, before we started traveling. So at that point, we gave up the house, we gave up everything of our worldly belongings, and we took off. When we came back in because my mom was ill. So we ended up staying here while she was ill and not feeling well, going to doctor's visits and those type of things. So we had never actually had a place. We were always...
And 80% of all of our belongings are in storage.
Yeah. I'm going to get rid of my belongings and live a minimalist lifestyle.
He's a liar. He's a fucking liar.
I'm going to live a minimalist lifestyle. I've told you I'm getting rid of all of my belongings.
Okay.
With exceptions, with caveats. There are caveats. There are always caveats. My wedding ring is a belonging. I'm not going to give that up. Pac-Man machine, that's a belonging.
You just fucking bought that, Mr. Minimalist.
Well, but that's because it gets me closer to my dad. So my dad, he wasn't around.
Ryan for president.
He often wasn't around.
He's not going to do that.
And not being around, one of the things, however, that he did bestow upon me was Pac-Man. He used to take me to the local convenience store and we would play Pac-Man. I was never happier. And it was my tether to my dad that I didn't have under normal circumstances. It was the thing that he confided in me that he often didn't confide with the rest of the world. Pac-Man. It's an emotional tether to my dad. And so I think that's a little bit different. And I think you're a hard-hearted person to begrudge me for having these emotional responses. Now, because usually you'd be like, oh, you don't have any emotions and everything else. And I'm bleeding my heart out on this Pac-Man machine.
I told you to get the Pac-Man machine. When we were in the store, and you're like, they have a Pac-Man. I said, get it. And you said, talk me out of it. And I was like,
but you're begrudging me now.
No, I'm begrudging you saying, I'm going to be a minimalist and get rid of all my stuff.
I am.
I don't think you know what the word minimalist means.
I don't know what minimalistly means.
Just like you don't know what the word literally means.
I literally know what the word literally means. And by minimalist, I just mean my worldly possessions, like my bed, my couch.
You don't have a couch.
My Xbox that don't work.
We're tossing that shit.
A lot of my t-shirts. But see, these are work clothing for me, so I don't have a choice but keeping my t-shirts and sweaters.
So one day he says, I'm going to toss all my t-shirts. And the next day he says, but this is my work wardrobe, so that's how I can justify having all this shit. Yeah, we're done here. We're done here.
Everything else can go. I mean, look, after traveling for a bit, living off of like 2 pair of pants.
Barbara Mearsma says, your Funko Pop dolls?
Well, yeah, those go with me. I mean, those were given to me by... I mean, some of this stuff have emotional attachments. I'm a human being. I have emotional attachments. You don't have emotional attachments? Huh?
Nah, bro.
I have emotional attachments. I'm man enough to say that. And in being man enough to say that...
Taking my dogs. Those are my emotional attachments. And my husband.
My Funko Pop dolls.
I only need you, babe.
I need a little bit more than that. I'm a person. I'm gonna be honest about that.
Fucking hell.
I need the dolls. Because that's just going to go in my studio.
Well,
that's just dolls. That's going to be my studio. So meaning when I set the background up and everything else, that's going to be something part of the minimalist studio.
Can I decorate it? Can I decorate your studio?
No, it wouldn't be.
Now
minimalist.
to confirm, to clarify, because somebody's saying something that makes me think that maybe we confuse you guys. We are moving because Jamal's starting the new job on the radio station in DC.
Yes.
He is going to be going in the office Monday through Friday from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock. So he will be in studio on the radio show, and that show will be broadcasted here on the YouTube channel. That will be on Sputnik Radio, but he will still be broadcasting like how it is on Fault Lines, how you can see and follow it on YouTube.
It'd be like
that's
that
how
through
it's
this
going to be
channel.
here.
12 to 2.
Now, he's doing that from 12 to 2, Monday through Friday. He's still going to continue doing regular content here on the Progressive Soapbox in our home. So, to the new house that we are relocating to,
that would be a
we
studio.
are making sure that he has space so that he can set up his equipment here in that new place. But he will still be going in office to Sputnik Radio and using all of their equipment there, but he's still going to have a home studio.
Yes.
Because it sounded like some people were kind of confused about what the heck is going on.
And when I'm saying minimalist, don't misunderstand me. I just mean there's a lot
Trudy
of
says,
stuff.
yes, Trudy, you will.
There's a lot of stuff that we've accumulated that we haven't used, nor do we need. And I don't see the point in taking that stuff with us.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Most of it is clothes.
But that can be
Most of it is clothes.
That can be dispatched with.
You have a really hard time getting rid of clothes.
What do you mean?
Because, like, you'll be like, I'm going to be a minimalist, and I'm going to get rid of all my clothes. But one caveat. I need all of my clothes for work.
No, that's not true. I got rid of like 20 T-shirts.
I don't know if it was 20, but
I got rid of like 20 T-shirts the other day. Right?
Yes.
Now, 80% of my wardrobe is T-shirts. Ish.
Mostly. But then outside of the T-shirts, there's a lot of stuff that has been in a box or in the... Why are we having this conversation right now? This is not... But I guess there's a lot of stuff that you haven't worn. My thing is, if I haven't worn it or used it since we've been here, that's almost 2 years. Trash it. Donate it. If it's broken or cannot be used, then we trash it. But everything else, we're going to have some people come pick stuff up from the donation thing and drop some other stuff off for donations.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. See, like that.
There's a lot of stuff that you're like, I might wear that shirt later. Or those jeans. It's like, oh, but I like those. It's like, but for the last year, every time that you've picked them up, you put them back down and pick something else.
Those can go away.
Okay.
I mean, when we were traveling, I was traveling like 2 pair of jeans.
Pensive says, just stop paying storage. Minimalist done. No, that's problematic. And that's what he said. But we have.
What do they do with that?
They auction off your shit.
Oh.
And the problem with that is the stuff that we actually do need like a sofa,
I need a TV,
is in storage.
I need the TV. Everything else can go. I think.
We have picked up a lot of souvenirs in all the traveling that we've done, and most of that is in storage, except for this last run that we did.
And like these, like getting Q to sign my picture was phenomenal, and being able to talk politics with him was phenomenal.
Caveat.
Well, that is a caveat. I mean, because that goes into my office.
Jesus says it ends up on Storage Wars. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
We're paying our storage, but we're going to get it and take most of it with us. But as we are cleaning it out, we purged a lot of stuff before we moved, and since we've been here, we've been purging a lot. But as we are unpacking that storage or getting it ready to go to Maryland, DC area, we're gonna toss some more shit too.
You know, I had a conversation with Q. Delaney,
oh, wait a minute, I missed a super chat. Sorry, Trudy. Hold on. Trudy says, hold on, let me find. I missed Trudy. Trudy says, anti-impeach for political reasons is partisanship.
No, it's not. It's just questioning whether or not the level of the crime or the level of whatever she's saying took place rises to the level of impeachment. The Ukrainian president is saying it didn't happen. The person who Zelensky, or who, what is his name, Yermans, he's saying it didn't happen. He's saying that this conversation never took place. So I don't think they should be impeaching Trump over this. That's my thought. Even if what they're saying is true, I don't think it rises to the level of impeachment. Now, because I don't think it rises to the level of impeachment, that doesn't necessarily think I think it's okay. I just don't think it's
She said for political reasons, I said.
Yeah, but it's not all of this is political. I mean, the question becomes, do I believe that this rises to the level of impeachment? My answer is no. It's secondary that I also think it's a bad idea. Both things just so happen to be true.
Man.
I get her point. She's trying to say that this issue is impeachable as an absolute, and that the only way to come away from this is for partisan reasons. No, that's not it at all. You thinking that it's impeachable is subjective. Just like Bush being impeached for those war crimes was subjective. They didn't do it. In this case, they did. Now, because it's subjective, I can very clearly say I don't think this rises to the level of impeachment. I just don't. Now, I also secondary think it's a horrible idea. It's a horrible idea. I don't like this notion of using our political edifice or our judicial edifice, let's say it that way, for political hit points. And it seems like that's what this boils down to. I also think it's a horrible fucking idea. I just think it's...
Oh, sorry. A dingo ate my... I don't know why I started laughing like that.
A dingo ate my baby.
A dingo ate my baby says, I heard Cenk is moving to District 25 in Cali to a nice house with a horse barn. Maggie Smith says...
Do you see my point? Like when,
see, but that was funny.
That was funny. But I guess my point is when this stuff becomes difficult when you're running because this type of jokes can be made. Like, can you imagine Steve, what's his name? The one who
Wiener?
No, Steve, the one who used to work with John what is his name? He used to work as a comedian. He's now doing late night. He used to pretend to be a Republican. He used to work with John. God damn it. The guy was absolutely funny. He was working with the fire department in order to get the firefighters their due in Congress.
Oh,
what is his name? Steve Colbert.
No, you're talking about...
Colbert. So, Colbert...
No, you're talking about Jon Stewart.
Well, Jon Stewart, but the person who was working with him was Colbert.
Oh, okay.
So, I was talking about Colbert. Can you imagine Colbert doing a joke?
It's like 20 Colberts on
here. Yeah, where he's making the case of saying, and Bernie Sanders has pushed for somebody to be in Congress, and he's using the New York Times as his piece in order to play off that, and shows him standing beside a horse barn talking about politics, and all of the jokes go around to him sucking off a horse. Like, that can happen. That can happen. Like, that's why this stuff becomes politically damaging when they push it out like this.
Maggie Smith says she's got dibs on the Make It So poster.
Make It So. This one.
He's not giving up anything.
Yeah, no, I'm not giving up.
Tell you right now. He ain't giving rid of shit.
I'm not giving up. Yeah, it becomes difficult when people are making jokes about, you sucking up horses. Even though, again, I think he was joking. Now, some people could say he was being serious, and his political opponent said, no, he was being serious about that. He was clearly being serious. Look at it. His host was horrified by it. She could make that type of thing, and you could play that video, and you could come away with either side of somebody saying, he seems a little emphatic about that.
And this is not the first time he's had this conversation.
Yeah,
Come on, man. They say some things you say in jest have some truth in them sometimes. Lighthead, to clarify, again, he says he hopes that the guy is always talking when you're on the radio show. It's not there. He talks too much. It's not that radio show. So
Sputnik.
Jamal does a radio show.
It's not.
It's
not the same radio show.
You wait.
That's a radio show here.
I am answering this.
Oh, go
Jamal does a radio show on Tuesdays here locally on the Work FM, WRWK, where he's in the studio.
In Chesterfield.
And it is his show. And there is a guy in the background off camera that you cannot hear or cannot see, but you can hear him. You can't really hear when the calls come in. That show only has one more week because we are leaving.
And
the show that we are referring to, right,
is in DC.
If you have seen
radio station.
If you have seen Jamal on a radio show called The Fault Lines with Nixon and Stranahan, it's 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. on Radio Sputnik. And they have a YouTube channel as well. That is the setup that Jamal is going to have because he's going to be with Radio Sputnik.
Yes.
Starting mid-January-ish.
It's technically a radio station that plays from 12 to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. it would be playing through this channel, despite it being a radio station. I just want to make
it's a radio show, but it is going to, the live taping of that radio show will be streamed here on YouTube, so you'll be able to see it.
Yes. So the one that's starting, that was before. Now I'm going to have a co-host named Bob, and we're still trying to struggle to get the name. I was thinking context. The news in context.
I recommended a really good name.
You recommended No Allegiances.
No Allegiances.
Right. The problem with No Allegiances is the same
Sputnik
problem.
Radio.
Yes, Sputnik Radio, and people can attack you saying that this No Allegiances refers to country as opposed to referring to parties. So I get a little bit dicey on the naming. That's all. But I got to be honest, I don't know what to call it. Bob and I are at odds. Neither one of us know what to call it. I really like the news in context.
What sound, Trudy? What are you talking about? Majin Bull says people focusing on Romeo. I might have to block him. Jesus. Mary and Joseph. Majin says people focusing on the bestiality, genocide stuff with Cenk are being stupid, but it's hard for me to care about him being smeared the way he treats Tulsi.
Look, I've said before, people have different points of view on this, but the issue becomes, what can you be attacked on? I think that's... Look, there are two issues. One is for Cenk himself. The other one is with Sanders. My point of view on this had to do with the intersection where Cenk got an endorsement from Sanders, and Sanders essentially, or Cenk pulled it back. I personally endorsed Cenk for that seat because I thought, for whatever it's worth, I thought he would be somebody who would forward Sanders' agenda. It is a second question on whether or not Sanders should pursue this endorsement, or at the very least fight Cenk on pulling back that endorsement, because supposedly Cenk pulled back the endorsement.
We talked about this earlier.
We did.
So scroll back to
and I know people are going to disagree with me on this.
9:30.
But it's it's not a singular issue. And I went through the entire way with it. Explaining
we talked about
a nuanced perspective on it in my other video. If you want to hear my other videos, in my other video.
Right. And there's a little bit more background earlier in this one because we've been going for a while. Trudy, no, it's not that show. She says she can't hear Bob or the caller on the radio show. We're not talking about that show. The one that he does locally where the person is off camera and you cannot hear them and see them or see the caller. That show only has one more week.
And just think, you chastise me for repeating it. You say, I said that already. And I was like, well, I'm repeating it just for emphasis, just to make sure people can understand it. Just so we're clear, I have gotten a new show on Sputnik that is going to be in DC. That is going to play on a radio station in DC. This radio station here has ended. I have one more show left and that's over with. The show for DC will start in mid-January and I will be in studio in DC at a real radio station Sputnik.
If you are curious to see what that setup, his new setup on his new show will look like, Fault Lines Radio is a show that airs on Radio Sputnik, and they have a YouTube channel that you can see the videos on. I'm leaving.
I vote for Cenk, but intentionally blurring the line between Sanders and Warren could do lasting damage to the left. Majin Bull, yeah, I agree with you on that. And I hit him continuously on that because I thought there was a clear difference between these two quantities, and you're pretending as if these two things are somehow the same. You're blurring the line. Trudy said she has short-term memory issues. Fair enough, Trudy.
Somebody said call the show Mind Shift. Maggie Smith says call it Fair Enough.
Fair enough. Fair enough is interesting.
I like that.
I don't know if Bob will be okay.
Fair enough.
I don't know. Yeah, Bob may not like that. And Mind Shift
was the other one.
Mind
Angie
Shift.
Grace seconds
I don't know if Bob's
that one.
Like that.
Says that's cute. Jamal says fair enough all the time.
I do, but Bob is on the show also. Like, it's not just me.
Right. It's going to be.
It's a co-host.
Right. They don't have a name for it yet, but they're mapping out all the details.
I really
for the new
want
show.
context. I think that would be cool. Or
the name of the show
news
to be called
in context. The news in context.
What about in context?
I like it. I tried to talk about this stuff and sitting on the moon. The catch is Bob going to like it? And up to this point, we haven't liked each other's names.
Okay, so what's the guy's name on the local radio station? Ron.
Yeah.
The guy that's on the radio show locally, where it's a little small one, and the guy's off camera, you can't ever see him. The audio's not all that great when the callers call in. That is Ron. There will be no more Ron. There's going to be Bob now, starting in January on Radio Sputnik.
In DC.
And you've never met Bob.
You've never met Bob.
So you have no opinion on Bob.
In DC, different radio station. A real radio station going out to DC and Maryland on 12 to 2. It's a different show. It's not the same show. All right. Like, fatiguing.
Wait.
Share.
I have a channel.
Yes. My wife also.
What's the name of my channel?
I'm going to actually just pull up your channel.
Because he can't ever remember the name.
What do you mean?
But it's cool, though.
It's talking about environmental stuff.
Ooh, right. So it's Bob and Jamal, or Jamal and Bob. So people are calling it BJ. And Reginald says, getting hard with BJ. Or getting hard with BJ.
I love it. Get up with BJ.
That's...
Or get hard with BJ.
Getting it on with BJ.
Getting it on with BJ. See, is that like, oh,
yes,
sexist
Najan,
SOBs.
You're right. My channel's called Aisha's Best Life. You don't have to pull it up. Oh, remember I put that little thing on your channel if you go to your videos? Like I accidentally uploaded like my little
No, you didn't. I put that there.
No, you didn't. I'm talking about in your actual videos. If you go to your actual videos on your channel, it's a hidden video, but it was kind of like a promo, the introduction thing that I was working on.
Right.
But I have a YouTube channel. There's only like 6 or 7 on there. But
well, you got 100 subscribers. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I have like 140 or something.
Then why you say there were 6?
I meant 6 videos.
Oh,
but basically, it is. I am sharing my journey into
I even added her into my list.
Lifestyle. I've been there for forever.
Aisha's Best Life. I put her there.
That's me.
I put her there. That's like Joe Biden.
Ooh, Majan says, I'll make this quick with BJ.
But see, that's
inappropriate.
Is that bad on the guy or is that just good on the girl?
I'll make this quick with the BJ.
Yeah.
I don't think that's bad.
Well, it depends on how fast, right?
I like in context too.
I like in context.
Gardenome says yes. Fox Firemaker says yes.
On the BJ one?
No, on the in context one.
Oh,
Nobody.
I like the in context one. Well, there were clearly people who
Maggie Smith says political beasts. No, it's not. Is it Bob Slidell? What's Bob's last name?
Yeah, Bob Slater.
That's different than Slidell.
No, it's not Slidell. It's like Bob Slater or something like that.
Political bestiality. Come on, guys.
Political beast.
I want to go to your...
What are you looking for?
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
What are you looking for?
Nothing.
No,
all right, we're going to go.
What you're looking for.
Your videos.
What
I thought
videos?
you were looking for that.
What videos?
Never mind. It's fine.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. You mean for fault lines?
No, babe. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know which videos.
All right,
you mean by any means necessary?
No, just forget about it. Context effect.
I don't like that one.
No, I like in context.
I like in context.
I like in context better than just context.
Yeah, in context.
I like in context.
Because it allows you to talk about pretty much anything as long as you just bring along this in context.
Yeah.
Bob said something about like, what do you think, or what about you, or something like that, and I was like,
nah, bro.
Like, yeah, the naming is a little.
En passant radio.
Oh, that's interesting. En passant, it's chess when a pawn moves over in order to take the other.
Oh, I was gonna say that looks French, but I don't know that word.
Yeah, en passant. It's stab in the back of the pawn. It's like the pawn goes by and it's like.
I don't need it to.
That's how I would do it. See, if I was in those bad guy movies, like those zombie apocalypse movies, I would last. I think I would be a beast when it turned out.
Mike Sarvis likes in context too.
I like in context too.
All right, we're heading out.
I'm sitting at the Bob. I'm gonna be like, Bob, my audience preferred in context, dude.
It's late and
I'm getting tired and I have to be up early in the morning. So.
What tips? What tips, Gardner? Because Gardner watches my show, my channel.
Well, they're good. I watch your channel too. I've watched all of your videos. I've watched videos that the audience haven't even seen yet.
My next one is gonna be like sustainable gift wrapping for the holidays.
Not to mention recyclable toilet paper.
No, we're not doing that.
Why not, babe? Be a soldier for the cause.
Yeah, but if you're interested, I have a channel called Aisha's Best Life. You can subscribe to me there. There's a video that comes out once every couple of weeks, and it's talking about living a more natural and less waste lifestyle and the things that I am doing to take us on that journey. And
I appear in it every so often.
Shit, not yet, but we working
Yes, I
on
do.
it.
I didn't appear in any of the videos?
No.
You cut me out?
I haven't done that one yet, where we had the footage where we were shopping.
Oh, so you cut me out.
No, I just haven't used it yet.
Ashamed of your
Literally.
husband. You don't want people to know that your husband
and actually,
is a fire breather on a different channel.
Breather. Oh, that makes me think of Stranger Things, where they call people mouth breathers. Oh, you ready to go now? You're gonna end it now because I started talking about mouth breathers and Stranger Things. I am done here. You guys have a good night. Thanks for watching. This is Contributor Appreciation. If you are not subscribed, make sure that you are subscribed. Also, consider being a patron. You can commit to as little as $1 a month, and it helps Jamarl continue to make the good content that he's making, because most of the shows that come out on his channel are demonetized. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. So consider being a patron on the Patreon platform. And if not, it's all good. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon. Give it a thumbs up if you enjoy the video. This music is making me I feel like I need to talk like this.
Share, subscribe. This is a good soundtrack, and I love this visual. Look at this.
Just type in.
Flip it over.
Oh.
All right. Thanks, guys. Like, share, subscribe.